Probably been up. It's easier to count the number of hours he's up than when he's sleeping. Oh, wow. Like the other day, he slept almost all day. Really count.
Anybody else?
Yeah, actually, you guys can't stand there. The TV's there with the Counselor Brennan online.
Sorry, Lou.
Jerome, I think you're back over here with me.
Over here. I gotta get behind this way over here.
Just don't kick me.
No, I gotta have you. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready.
There we go. Right, you guys are sitting, so it's gonna be okay. Why not?
I could see it on there. That was just what was on.
Oh, my keys.
So many rules.
You're good. Mayor Harris, you're good to go.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's not wired. No, we moved from the office to here. So we didn't have to take everything up and every night and tear it down again.
It's a nice change for
Yeah.
staff.
Makes it
Excellent.
easier for them. They don't have to stay late.
Thank you. I'll just a couple of housekeeping things. We do have a fuller room than usual tonight. Thanks for coming. If everybody can just try and be as quiet as we can, and I know that sound in here isn't exceptional, so we'll just kind of keep it orderly and quiet and respectful as we go through the meeting. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order, the regular council meeting Tuesday, February 7th, 2022 at 7:01 p.m. We would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Indigenous peoples of the Treaty 7 region and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continue to enrich our community. Okay. Any changes to the agenda? We do have one. If somebody would like to make, there aren't any other changes. Does somebody want to make a motion?
Through the chair.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that the agenda be accepted with the removal of item 7.2, the Vista Crossing Phase 4 building permit release.
All in favor? Excellent. No one opposed. Okay, item 3.1. Are there any changes to the minutes of January 17th, 2023 regular council meeting? Okay, if there's no changes, can I get a motion?
Sure. A motion that the minutes of January 17th, 2023 regular council meetings be accepted as prepared.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, item 5.1, or sorry, 4.1, delegation, Trevor Stevens. Trevor, you are a recipient of a very prestigious award. Sue, do you have the paper copy?
I do.
Thanks, just to help me out.
No problem.
Excellent. All right, I don't know if all of you guys know this, but Trevor is a recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal. He's being awarded to Albertans in recognition of significant contributions to the province. Community Peace Officer Trevor Stevens was put forward for his continued contribution to Canada, Alberta, and the community. Trevor's been a CPO for the town of Crossfield since July 6, 2015, and has also served the residents of Alberta and Canada as a member of the military and various fire departments as a paramedic throughout Alberta since 1994. A huge congratulations to CPO Stevens on receiving the Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee Medal in recognition of his significant contributions. And, you know, on behalf of council and, you know, staff, I just want to say thank you, Trevor. That's a huge accomplishment for everything that you've done for not only Crossfield, but the province and your various roles in your work and the volunteerism that you have done. So I'm just going to come around.
Smile. Thank you.
I'll just open the floor up and if any counselor wants to say anything to Trevor as well.
Good, Chair.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive award to win, Trevor. I think you've spent a long time in this town and it's pretty good to be represented for that. Just want to thank you for all your good work and help in this town. Not many people last 8 years in a town like this. Went above and beyond, so just thank you for all your help in this town.
Through the chair. Again, thank you, Trevor, for all the hard work that you have done for this town and the service that you provide. And I know it's a thankless job that you know, you get a lot of. You don't make a lot of friends by enforcing the rules, and nobody always does. But thanks for sticking with us and helping our town be safe. Thank you.
Through the chair. Trevor, yes, I would like to congratulate you. And I do agree with Councillor Gustafson that it's a tough job being a peace officer, and I commend you. And you do have to be tall like you to do your job. Congratulations.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Through the chair.
Yep.
Yeah, like everybody else, thanks for everything you've done. Is it? People just don't realize how much goes into your job and all the black yet. And we really appreciate what you've done for the town. Thanks.
Through the chair. Congratulations, Trevor. I just second, all I can say is ditto on what everybody else has said.
Awesome. Good job, Trevor. So just maybe a round of applause for Trevor.
Brennan.
Councillor Brennan.
Sorry, Councillor Brennan, go
Hey.
ahead.
Hey, no problem. Thank you. And thank you, Trevor. I've just in the past little while here gotten to know you a lot better than in the past, but it's a very impressive resume and definitely something to aspire to. And absolutely congratulations. And thank you for all the work you've done for the community.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor. Obviously, we're all proud of you. CEO Keenan, would you like to say a few words?
When do I not say a few words? Thank you, Mayor Harris. Good evening, council. We did have a little gathering for Trevor today at the office. He's an exceptional CPO officer. I've dealt with a lot of you over the years, none quite as unique as you, Trevor. I concur with several of the councillors. Your height definitely is an advantage here in this community. It's a thankless job for most of the time. And I've really appreciated the work and the effort that you've done. So on behalf of all the staff here at the town of Crossfield, keep doing what you're doing and thanks for being part of the team.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks, Trevor. Okay. Moving on. Item 5.1 bylaws 2023-01 line of credit borrowing bylaw. Amber, looks like you're up.
Thank you. Is everyone sticking around? No one's leaving after Trevor's?
I think they're here for other reasons.
Okay. Just making sure. Okay. All right.
Trevor's great, but
Yeah, I agree. Congratulations, Trevor. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here today to introduce borrowing bylaw number 2023-01, the ATB line of credit. As a requirement of section 251 of the Municipal Government Act, the town is required to develop this bylaw for borrowing funds from a financial institution. So as mentioned previously, the line of credit borrowing bylaw requires annual renewal. Administration is bringing forward the 2023-01 line of credit borrowing bylaw. The line of credit is for principal sum of $1,500,000 from the ATB Bank branch in Crossfield, Alberta, repayable upon demand at an interest rate of prime plus 1%. Such interest shall be calculated daily and due and payable monthly. The line of credit bylaw is effective upon third reading and will expire on December 31st, 2023. Borrowing bylaw 2023-01 has been advertised for 14 days as outlined in the MGA. Administration is recommending that council give second and third reading to the bylaw 2023-01 ATB line of credit.
excellent. Thanks, Amber. Council have any questions for Amber?
Through the chair.
Yep, go ahead.
Amber, how much do we use of the line typically throughout the year?
So far, we haven't used the line of credit. It's just there for emergency purposes. So long as it's not, the credit isn't being utilized, it doesn't count towards our debt limit in any way. So it's just a
Safety net.
safety net for ours, for operational purposes.
Okay, thank you, Amber.
Excellent. Any other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions or conversation, can I get a motion?
Through the chair,
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion that the borrowing bylaw 2023-01 be given second reading.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, can I get a final motion, please?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
I move that the borrowing bylaw 2023-01, the ATB line of credit, been given third and final reading.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Thanks, Amber. Think you got the easy one tonight. All right. Moving on, item 5.2, 2023-05 traffic bylaw, Russ Nash.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Good evening, council. So yes, we brought forward to you the updated traffic bylaw. Over the past several months, administration has received several complaints and concerns from different residents regarding parking within Knight Place. Not unlike cul-de-sacs in many different neighborhoods and municipalities, residents in this neighborhood have been parking nose in front of their properties. Although this practice allows for parking of more vehicles, it is technically not allowed under the Traffic Safety Act, as vehicles are supposed to park parallel to the curb. In an effort to address the problems and to be able to enforce the rules and regulations, administration made an attempt to require residents within this neighborhood to park according to the Traffic Safety Act, which ultimately resulted in additional complaints and led to an in-person meeting with residents of that area to work out the issues. From this meeting, it was agreed that we would go back to allowing nose-in parking, and it was made clear to all residents that the town and or RCMP will not get in the middle of disputes between neighbors unless a law or bylaw is being breached. In addition, contact information for mediation services was provided to assist in settling neighbor disputes. As council may recall from the last Alberta Municipalities Convention in September 2022, the membership put forth a resolution to the province to change the Traffic Safety Act to allow nose-in parking within cul-de-sacs. We haven't received information on how that is progressing yet. However, complaints around parking in this cul-de-sac have recently started to come back to administration. To assist in dealing with this problem in the meantime, administration is proposing an amendment to the traffic bylaw to include the following. Section 4.0B unless required or permitted by this bylaw or the Traffic Safety Act, or by a traffic control device, or in compliance with the directions of a peace officer or other authorized person, or to avoid conflict with other traffic. Drivers shall not stop or park their vehicle, and subsection I, in such a manner to create a nuisance, obstruct, or interfere with the lawful use of one's property and or vehicle on a roadway, alley, sidewalk, public parking lot, or private property. While making this update, administration also made some revisions to the rest of the bylaw to correct formatting, spelling, and consistency. Updates to the specified penalties were also made to bring them in line with provincial fines and similar fines being imposed by surrounding municipalities. Once approved, this updated bylaw will be provided to every household in Knight Place to make them aware of the change and to also inform them that it will be enforced. To provide peace officers, including the RCMP, the ability to enforce parking in cul-de-sacs while the province considers the change to the Traffic Safety Act proposed by AM. Administration recommends that council give all 3 readings and approve the updated traffic bylaw 2023-05 as presented.
Thanks, Russ. Before I open up for questions, I just have a question for Sue. I know there are some people here from the cul-de-sac where there's been some issues. What is the protocol around that? Are they speaking tonight? Are they questioning the bylaw?
Nobody's asked to speak to council with regard to this matter in terms of being a delegate. But again, in accordance with our current procedural bylaw, there is an opportunity for them to ask council questions at the end of the regular council meeting agenda.
Okay, good. Okay, excellent, thanks. So questions for Russ?
And I should just mention Trevor is also here to assist with those questions.
And Jeremy.
And Jeremy.
So what Russ is saying is give Trevor all the hard questions. Okay,
Sure.
go ahead.
I don't have one Russ specific to the Knight Place one, but I have one that came up from a couple different people. 4.10.b talks about emergency snow removal, cleaning, construction. Work commences at a signed portion of the highway. The owner of any vehicle parked 12 hours after the place of the appropriate signs shall be in contravention of the section. Vehicles may be towed at the owner's expense. Do we think 12 hours is enough notification for our residents to be able to get their vehicles moved? And, you know, like people could be out of town for a year. It just, to me, 12 hours, you can put it up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning. And the next day, if someone's working a night shift and not back in time, is it always been 12 hours in town?
I believe it has been. And it's consistent with the snow clearing policy as well.
Yeah, and so I just want to comment on that too, because that was one of my notes that I wrote down. I don't feel that 12 hours is enough. There are people who work shift work or just so many things that they're going to miss a sign and then they get towed. I would actually prefer if it was 24 hours in here and maybe even in the snow clearing bylaws so that they align. So that would be one of the changes that I would be looking for.
Good.
Okay, any further questions?
Through the chair,
Go ahead, Councillor Gustafson.
I've got a couple, and whoever wants to field these, by all means, I've got a real hard one. So do we know how many cul-de-sacs this is going to affect? I know all of them, but it's, you mentioned that you're going to inform Knight Place, or what is it? What's it called? It's across the street from me. So
Knight Place.
Knight Place. So you're going to inform them, but are we going to inform all the rest of them? Because as far as I'm concerned, if we're targeting them, we have to let all the other cul-de-sacs know. So
It obviously would apply to them all, but the reason going to that place specifically is because that's where we've been having the issues.
totally get it.
I mean, we'll make sure that it's advertised through all of our channels so that all residents are aware of it. But we wanted to make sure that just because we are having complaints right now at this moment, that information gets to them.
Okay.
Right away.
Okay. So I don't know, like, is it feasible to go through all the cul-de-sacs you know, we're trying to inform or enforce a provincial rule. This is not a town rule. Everybody has to remind ourselves of that. So, I'll let, Sue answer.
CAO Keenan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. The plan was, once we actually get provincial approval to move forward with the changes to the Traffic Act, then we will make every effort to ensure that every cul-de-sac in the town of Crossfield is informed via a specific newsletter outlining the major changes to the bylaw.
Okay, so that was my second question is, you know, as soon as the province changes, we will have to inform the residents at that
Correct.
point too. Do we have any idea of, you know, we're just trying to enforce this certain rule right now, and until we get confirmation from the province that they've changed it, then. But is that really correcting the problem though?
Well, it's the best we can do, given the circumstances. I think sometimes there is no rules for common sense and how we deal with things in a community. And that's why when we had the meeting with the residents of Knight Place, we had talked with a mediation service out of Airdrie.
Okay,
And we really tried hard to get both parties at the table that were involved in the initial issue. One party was very happy to come to the meeting and be very involved and were interested in mediation. The other party, they wanted nothing to do with it. And I think, if I'm not speaking out of turn on behalf of my CPO officer and Jerem, is that they have tried on numerous occasions to have conversations and it has gotten nowhere. So this is going to give us a tool, a little bit more teeth in it with regard to nuisance in that particular cul-de-sac.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's it for me. I just want to, you know, ensure that, you know, all the rules apply to everybody, and, you know, if somebody's going to suffer because of it, then I guess we're all suffering if we live in a cul-de-sac, unfortunately, but hopefully we can, you know, it comes to an agreement where we can all live together peacefully as neighbors. So thank you, Mayor.
Could segue into my question. So in regards to traffic bylaw, in section 4.6, abandoned vehicles, 72 hours for vehicles to be on a highway or one of our roads, which are deemed highways. How do we enforce that? There's cars all over the place in Crossfield that are parked for more than 72 hours. Do we have enforcement on that? Is that enforcement like equal throughout the town? Or do we allow like one resident with 12 cars to not move their cars for years?
I will address.
Okay, thank you.
It is addressed universally. Now, there's some flexibility there. Bylaw. Technically states that it's abandoned. Now,
Yeah.
if it's parked in front of your house and it doesn't look derelict, something that immediately comes out. There's some people who go away for holiday.
Right.
Doesn't suddenly mean that their vehicle is abandoned. If somebody is not moving their vehicle and they're interfering with snow clear, that might be something. to look at. How long has it been there? And that person, that registered owner, will contact. They're also reminded, all of the residents are reminded that streets are not a place to store, including the several
Yeah,
has also been. And except for what I see with a few of them, just the snow buildup. Very diligent to move those vehicles. It's not a problem. But
he actually does that.
if I tell him he has to move it, now it has to go on 48 hours. But if he moves it beforehand,
Right. Okay, good to know. Awesome. Go ahead.
Through the chair, do we, you know, we talk about several vehicles. Do we have, you know, there's no real law against somebody else parking in front of my house or in front of, you know, the
No.
mayor's or in front of your house. I know it's going to be a problem, you know, at the cul-de-sac across the street from me, and, there'd be, somebody that has multiple vehicles, well, I guess I'll have to figure that out. And, are we trying to figure out, you have two vehicles in front of your house, or, that, I guess they'll have to figure that out, because right now, what's holding somebody back and parking in front of, somebody that you don't like? Just go park your vehicle there. I know it's going to be a problem. It's,
It does occur. It is a public street. You have to wait for it. Don't ever speak.
Yeah.
Vehicle. Store it there. I also like to park in my house.
Now, I guess another question I have is, because cul-de-sacs and we're limiting space on, the limiting space is the street in front of your house, and you can only park so many cars. Now we use that center core of the cul-de-sac. And is there any limitations, do we know, from the town bylaw or from provincial, or anything that speaks to how many vehicles you can stick in the center?
So I've actually researched that when we were dealing with. And there's nothing within the Traffic Safety Act that allows parking. So it's been one of those things where, as long as they're doing it safely and not during the movement of traffic around there.
Yeah.
It's something that's not.
Okay. I'm just trying to hit on every point of where, if we're going to have continue to have problems, there's got to be a solution somewhere, but, we'll find it.
Well, I think in that situation, it's, some of it's, we'll find it with bylaws and things like that. But it's really down to a neighbor issue. They really have to learn how to be good neighbors, be respectful and respectful of each other. And I mean, everyone comes across a neighbor at times that maybe they don't get along with, but I think that you have to work, just like any relationship, you have to work at that and make it work out for everyone that's in the Crescent. Okay, any further questions on the bylaw? Okay, I think that I'm not ready for a motion. I don't know about the rest of council, but I would like that 12 hours changed to 24. Can we change that to 24 and still make a motion on it, or bring it back?
You can make a motion on this bylaw tonight with the understanding that administration will bring back the amendment on the snow clearing hour from 12 hours to 24, and it'll be reflected in this as well.
Okay, so any of the motions would have to have that amendment in it.
Correct.
Okay. Then I would be okay with that. Okay, any further discussion, questions? Okay, somebody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I motion the traffic bylaw 2023-05 be given first reading with the, we should talk about that, with the snow clearing adjustments 24 hours.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, Councillor Brennan, if I'm not paying attention to you, just remind me that you're there. Okay.
You betcha.
All right. All right, motion carried. Who'd like to give the second reading?
I'll give the second reading
Oh, go ahead.
through the
Thanks,
chair.
Councillor Brennan.
I move that the traffic bylaw 2023-05 be given second reading
With the amendment?
with the amendment of the snow clearing to change to 24 hours.
Excellent, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, third and final reading. Somebody would like to make a motion?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
I make the motion that the traffic bylaw 2023-05 be brought forward for third and final reading with unanimous consent,
And? With the,
with the amendment changing the snow clearing hours from 12 to 24.
awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. That was everyone, if you can't see Councillor Brennan. Okay. And the final one, that the traffic bylaw be given third and final reading. Somebody can make
Okay.
that motion. Okay, go ahead.
Through the chair, I'll make the motion that the traffic bylaw 2023-05 be given third and final reading with the amendment to match snow removal of 24 hours.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thanks, Russ, Trevor. Jeremy didn't do anything, so.
Please stand here and look pretty.
She's standing there looking good. That's it, right?
My bodyguard.
Okay, moving on to item 5.3, 2023-06 dog control bylaw. Russ.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Yeah, so the dog control bylaw, a recent review of the existing dog control bylaw, number 2019-11, revealed a slight gap in the bylaw that did not account for enforcement when an owner takes their dog into an area that is prohibited by signage. Therefore, administration has brought forward a proposed change to the bylaw to include the following. Section 3.0, the owner of a dog or dogs, subsection B, shall not have a dog in a place or on property where prohibited by signage. In addition to this update, administration has made additional revisions to correct formatting, spelling, and consistency. Updates to the specified penalties were also made, bringing them in line with similar fines being imposed by surrounding municipalities. Administration recommends that council give all three readings and approve the updated dog control bylaw 2023-06 as presented.
Excellent. Thanks, Russ. I just want to just talk a little bit as to why we brought a change forward. I think this is important to bring up and maybe expand on what my knowledge is, but a lot of people are using our cemetery as an off-leash dog park. And they're leaving dog feces all over the cemetery. And so this is one of the reasons why we wanted to make an update and change to the bylaw so that we can help mitigate some of that. Did I get it, or is there more to it?
That is correct.
Okay, excellent. Questions for us?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
That's actually what my question was, and I didn't know why.
Oh,
And, it was the cemetery. Do we know of any other places, town-owned property that, or I guess private property or anything, you could put a sign up and say no dogs allowed? And is that correct, or is that just public property?
I'll have to leave that one to Trevor.
Public property, yeah, private property.
And that bylaw would apply?
But this bylaw,
Okay, yeah, just confirming. So do we have any other property other than the cemetery that might be in question that?
Castle.
Mhm.
Yeah,
The ball
yeah, the
diamond.
ball diamonds, yeah.
Yeah.
But that already had signs or it had signs on it before, did it not?
Cemetery and. all that.
Yeah,
There's no.
no, okay.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, if we're ready to give some readings, can I get a motion on the first reading?
Through the chair,
Go ahead.
I will make a motion that bylaw 2023-06 dog control bylaw be given first reading.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Second reading motion, please.
Through the chair,
Go
I'll
ahead.
make the motion. Are we here? The dog control bylaw 2023-06 be given second reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Moving to third and final reading.
The chair.
I'll make the motion. Oh,
Okay, I'll go to Counselor Knight. You might want to do the next one.
I motion that the dog control bylaw 2023-06 be brought forward for third and final reading with unanimous consent.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Counselor Brennan, you want to give the final one?
sure. That the dog control bylaw 2023-06 be given third and final reading.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Item 6.1, Iron Landing Phase 5 subdivision. Merrill.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Good evening, council. So I'm just going to do an overview of the report. So this subdivision is for 17.94 acres of the Iron Landing subdivision. The applicant Nitin Bansal of Total Geomatics on behalf of Creation Communities. I'm not sure if he's here this evening. And this is part of phase five of the tentative plan. So the circulation was via internal and external agencies and adjacent landowners. So I'll just give a brief background here. In June 2011, Council by bylaw adopted the Iron Landing Area Structure Plan. And following that, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4 happened. The most recent, Council would remember, in June of 2022, Council adopted bylaw 2022-01 to redesignate these particular lands from urban reserve to residential single detached small district, residential single detached medium lot district, and residential townhouse district. Included within that was some parcels for municipal and institutional district, which is municipal reserve, and public service right of way. We look at the planning analysis. The purpose of the subdivision application is to subdivide the 17.94 acres to create 123 lots to proceed with phase 5 of the Iron Landing ASP. The proposal is to accommodate the following: 118 residential lots and 5 designated municipal and institutional district lots. The parcel of land is bordered by the Canadian Pacific Rail right-of-way to the east and a residential subdivision to the southwest from the first phase of Iron Landing, with undeveloped lands to the north. The surrounding land uses include, to the west, we have urban reserve and residential land and municipal and institutional district. To the north, we have urban reserve. To the south, we have residential parcels and municipal and institutional district. To the east, we have urban reserve. Access to this proposed subdivision site will be via existing McCaskill Drive from the southeast and Harrison Street, from the southwest. When we look at the policy alignment within the municipal development plan, policy 3.312 of the municipal development plan states that for all residential and commercial developments, 10% of the net developable area of land to be subdivided shall be dedicated in accordance with the MGA for the purposes of providing municipal reserve, school reserve, or municipal or school reserve. So the calculation that we did, this total MR dedication for the subdivision is 10.14%. Iron Landing Area Structure Plan. The Area Structure Plan includes a phasing plan that outlines that the subject lands to be subdivided as future phases. The Land Use Bylaw, the proposal meets the applicable criteria of the Town of Crossfield Land Use Bylaw. The purpose of the residential single detached medium parcel district is to provide for residential development in the form of single detached dwellings on medium-sized parcels. And the R1B lots meet the minimum lot width and lot depth as outlined in this district. The purpose of the residential single detached small parcel district is to provide for residential development in the form of single detached dwellings on small parcels within laned subdivisions. The R1C lots meet the minimum lot width and lot depth as outlined in the R1C district. The purpose of the residential townhouse district is to provide for townhouses and similar forms of residential development within lane subdivisions with separate entrances at grade for all residential units. And again, the R3 lots meet the minimum lot width and lot depth as outlined in this district. So as we noted earlier, we did circulate this application to internal and external agencies. We've provided council with a summary of the comments that we received along with all of the replies via email or via letter. I won't go through all of them, but I will note a couple. So the Director of Community and Protective Services Department, Russ Nash, provided some really good comprehensive comments to speak to emergency access and fence materials, what sort of surfacing the pathways will have, and then also the sewage lift station on the PUL Public utility lot is within a residential area and looks like it shares a property line with a house. Also, we received very valid comments from the Recreation Board, where there was comments regarding no pathways, no parks, no recreation areas, no community space, no paths leading to the towns or schools or anything for that area. Townhouses right up to the ball diamond, small lots, and changing of the drainage pond. It is obvious that they are trying to build as many houses as they can, get on the land to maximize profits with no thought towards the community. Additionally, the green space you have indicated appears to be totally useless space. There is no opportunity for any Crossfield Rocky View citizens to recreate in that space so close to the tracks. Another comment was received from an adjacent landowner, which speaks to the safety of the amount of traffic traveling on McCaskill. In summary, the proposed subdivision application aligns with the approved Iron Landing Area Structure Plan, the Town of Crossfield Municipal Development Plan, and the town's land use bylaw. Administration is confident that requirements from external agencies, as noted from the circulation, that are contained within the conditions of this approval can be addressed through collaboration with the applicant prior to endorsement. Therefore, administration recommends that the application 2022-9001-000-S1 for 53 Arwent Residential Single Detached Medium Parcel District, 16 Residential Single Detached Small Parcel District, 49 Residential Townhouse District, and 5 municipal and institutional district lots be approved with the following conditions. And I just want to note to council that we have included a few conditions for the developer's consideration, and I'll read them to you. Prior to plan endorsement, it is the responsibility of the applicant that a landscaping plan be completed and submitted for review. The landscaping plan shall include types of plants, pathway material, lighting, grades, site furniture, fencing, public art, and soil conditions. Another one would be prior to plan endorsement, it is the responsibility of the applicant to submit emergency vehicle access plans for the development area, as the town of Crossfield will not accept emergency access through the MR lots. The plan must indicate proposed access routes and list roadways. And prior to plan endorsement, it is the responsibility of the applicant to submit plans showing any fencing, bollards, or barriers intended to discourage regular vehicle traffic from entering the pathway and municipal reserve areas. And I can take any questions.
Thanks, Meryl. I'm just wondering, with all these kind of outstanding issues, if this is a complete application, and why would these readings come to council prior to having conversation with the developers, and having those conversations first and mitigating that and then coming to council? It seems kind of backwards to me to be having all these comments and issues not being addressed first, and we're approving something that's kind of half-baked, half-finished.
So I have shared, as the comments have come in, I have shared every comment, every email with the applicant. They were invited to attend this evening to speak to these items. I did reference the comments from the Recreation Board specifically so that they can be spoken to. Typically, when we come to council with an application, we look for an approval. It's up to council whether or not you don't approve it or table the application. But the idea is these conditions are built into the approval. So should you approve this application this evening without them here to argue any of the conditions, these conditions stand unless they appeal the conditions of the approval. So they would have to meet all of the conditions.
But does that include the comments from the rec board and that MR space? And I know we have 10.14% of MR space, but that's 4 different parcels.
Right.
And how much is each parcel? How much land is each parcel? And is that space that's usable space, or is that just another linear green space that we can't do anything with?
For the majority, it's a pathway between the houses that back onto CP
Right.
Rail. So there's a pathway built in there. There are some linear green spaces in between the neighborhoods. There was something else you said at the beginning.
But we'll think about that and get back to that.
Yeah.
And so on the MR space, I thought we had talked about for phase 5 with even the developer that we were gonna consolidate some of those MR spaces so that we would have a package of MR space that we could actually do something with. Whether that's rectangular fields or just something bigger, so it would be useful.
I think that's the intent moving forward. We have to remember that this application aligns with the current area structure plan that is in place. That does, so it meets all of the policy guidelines. It follows the development patterns as outlined in the approved area structure plan. So what I do know is the developer is looking to revisit the area structure plan in the near future. And there may be an opportunity then to see larger municipal reserve spaces for parkland.
But what you're saying is too late for this phase 5 then. But we heard that in phase 4, too late. Oh, thanks for your comments, but it's, too late for this phase. And now we get to phase 5 and we have all these comments and they may or may not be put in because they've met the minimum requirements for their phases. So what I want to know is why are we gathering comments if they're not being really considered?
Because they are aligning with the current area structure plan that has been approved.
Well, then what I have to say to that is how soon can we do a new area structure plan? Because,
Area structure plans are driven by the developer, not by the town.
so why are we here?
Well, council approved the previous area structure plan. I can't speak to previous approvals. My role is to assure council that it aligns with the policy.
But you hear what I'm saying? Or why are we getting comments and getting feedback when that information may or may not be used?
Well, that's why we build the conditions within the approval to make sure that they do consider. I realize that the recreation side of it is, we can't really address those right now because it's not the way the area structure plan is designed. It doesn't really accommodate a lot of park space other than what is north of Veterans Park. That's where the majority of the MR space is.
So I'm just, do you recall the conversation we had with the developer though, around consolidating?
Yes.
And
I
it was
believe-
for the phase 5.
No, if we look at the redesignation application, so the rezoning application, this mirrors the rezoning application. I think the open space plans that the developer was speaking to was going to be addressed in their ASP amendment.
Okay, and just further to that with the pathways. Are pathways going to be, those connectivities going to be addressed in this phase?
We've asked for the pathway. We've asked for pathways to be within those green spaces that divide the neighborhoods. So we've asked for a landscaping plan to include that.
Right, okay, so, I just wonder like, why, if you've asked for that already and they know about this, why don't they give us a complete plan?
We've asked for it in these conditions.
Oh, okay,
So the conditions of approval outline.
we don't
that.
ask for those things beforehand.
That's why we do the circulation so that we can build those conditions of approval based on the feedback received.
Okay, and who approves the conditions? Like who takes all the comments and goes, oh, I'll take this one, but I won't take these other comments?
Administration reviews it, and then we go back to our engineering and planning teams to make sure that we have the wording that we need to cover us.
Okay, but basically administration is the filter on what
We are
comments
the
make it
filter.
in and what is used in that area structure. for those
Administration is the
plans.
filter, but council is the subdivision authority, and you can make any changes you wish.
Right. So if we wanted some of that to be in those comments and,
Absolutely.
okay, that's all I need to know. Thanks, Meryl.
You're welcome.
One further thing, and if you don't mind, Derek, you made a comment about the stormwater pond. Can you just expand on that?
Certainly. The previous storm ponds that were part of previous phases of development, there are two of them, both of them being evaporation ponds. were, they encountered some construction difficulty, and I should say the first one in particular did, which meant that it was not built the way it was originally intended due to conditions in the field. Because of this, that pond was actually never approved. It remains as an outstanding item that we think should be addressed, as it is not operating to what the original design suggests it should. They are within this application expanding the overland drainage right of way that encompasses all of the storm pond area. And as I say, by expanding it, they're telegraphing, I would say, their intent to address this problem. So the overall intent would be that the existing storm ponds be altered and somewhat expanded into a final form that would have to be go under engineering review, obviously, but that would then actually function as the overall intent.
Okay.
The other comment I believe that I made in that was that there is the potential that there is some difficulties that may come at ASP stage, and all I was saying with that was that the expanded area is not accounted for in the original ASP. So the amendment that Merrill alluded to earlier would need to include the revised area.
Excellent. So I'm just curious, what happens first, the storm ponds or the development?
So the first storm pond would have been done concurrent with, and I apologize, that was a little bit before my time at Crossfield, but the first storm pond would have been done concurrent with, I believe, the first two phases.
And moving forward?
Moving forward, ultimately, what we would like to see is a storm pond that the town can accept, because as things stand right now, they are forced into contingency, say, as far as trying to deal with the stormwater properly. This is ultimately the hope would be leading to a solution where the overall storm pond would be something that we can improve and carry on.
Yeah, so my question really is what happens first, the fixes in the storm pond or development?
Are you referring specifically to this phase?
Yeah.
Again, the requirements for stormwater with this phase would be workable with the current setup, but I believe it is the developer's intent to do both.
Okay, excellent. Open the floor to questions for Merrill.
Through the chair. It's not a question, but more of a comment, and it's, maybe, it seems like we're running around in circles here a little bit, and I think it may be, a value that we take the recommendations or back to the developer and get their, actually have them sitting here and see if they're willing to play ball with the recommendations before we give approval. Because I'd hate to go back and forth and say, hey, no, we don't want this. And, this fits the area structure plan. I'd like them to be able to sit in front of council and, go by the recommendations that we've given them to be able to give approval. So I don't know what the rest of council's thoughts on that are, but that's what I would do is let's do this once and do it right.
No, I concur with that.
And be able to give, if they're not going to be willing to go by this and just go by the minimum of the area structure, the current area structure plan, which is by their rights, they can, but if we, it's not like we're trying to force their hand, but we want some good things for our town, and then this is a way we can do that. So.
No, absolutely. We understand you want added value.
Okay, so I don't know if there's any more
Or value.
comments. I can make a motion.
Let's finish discussion and then we'll go to a motion.
Yep.
Yes, through the chair. Meryl, could we also request more updated diagrams? Because we just keep seeming to get the same one. So with our requests, like the pathways and any of the trees, Russ wants to know where the trees go, just update it more because we've been looking at the same diagram over and over again.
Absolutely. We can ask the developer to provide that for our next meeting.
Thank you.
And I think even moving forward with any of this development stuff, I think the town of Crossville, we have to get really good at asking for what we want up front so that these developers know exactly what the expectations are so they can meet those expectations. And sometimes having them submit a plan or whatever that's, you know, the same old maps or the same old information instead of fulfilling like, here's the plan. Here's a checklist. This is what we want to see in all those things. It should already include what, if there's going to be a pathway in there, it should be on there. The landscaping plan should be with it. It should be a full submission, not piecemealed. So I think we as a town need to get better at asking for all of those things upfront in the original submission.
Mayor Harris, so when we look at the redesignation application that was approved in June 2022, the redesignation application highlights where the residential lots and where the park spaces will be, the MR, that sort of thing. It did indicate then the setbacks from the railway. It showed the pathway. That's something that we can certainly include in the next application for the subdivision.
Yeah.
Subdivision is basically to show you how each of the areas are subdivided for their use, but we can ask the developer to provide that.
I think it's good, especially if you're getting comments from rec board and other parties, they can see the full picture and that might mitigate even some of those comments moving forward too.
For sure.
Anyone else? Okay. Motion time.
Still writing it out.
Okay,
I can get it close anyways.
sure.
Lindsay always helps me on this one. All right, so I'll move to table the approval of phase 5 Iron Landing subdivision and direct the administration to reconnect with the developer to bring them back to the next available council meeting for approval of the conditions presented. Something like that.
Are we good on that? Yep. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Clive.
Motion carried. Thank you. Thanks, Meryl.
No problem.
Okay, Meryl, you're up again. Hot
Yeah.
seat time.
I know.
That's Okay, item
Okay.
7.1, Highway 574 street lighting, Meryl.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Okay, so in 2022, the town of Crossville began working on gathering information relating to a portion of a provincial highway, Highway 574, that remains without necessary street lighting. Upon discussions with representatives at Alberta Transportation, the town learned that while they support the installation of street lighting, no funding would be provided towards this project. Without knowing what costs would be attributed to installing lighting from Harrison Street and Murdoch Street to Range Road 12 on the southern portion of Provincial Highway 574, the town has investigated what the monetary obligation would be to do so. Follow-up discussions with Fortis in December resulted in Fortis providing a quote letter. The quote package contains information relating to a cost estimate, scheduled and additional information regarding the service requested, by providing light standards on the south side of Highway 574 from Murdoch and Harrison Street to Range Road 12. The costing provided is projected to be $136,816.24 for 26 light standards. Administration has prepared a letter to the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, the Honorable Devin Dreeshen, regarding the need for their contribution to the much-needed illumination within the provincial corridor. In an effort to avoid downloading a portion or the entire amount of installation costs to residents, administration has prepared a draft letter to the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors for your consideration. The draft letter offers the minister the reasoning behind needing the lighting, how it aligns with town policy, and the impacts to the community and taxpayer. It is the hope of administration that the minister will support our request and that consideration will be given to either fund the project in its entirety or a portion thereof. Once the town has heard from the minister, it can be determined what direction will be taken with this project. If funding is in place, we can then proceed with accepting the quote and notifying affected residents of the work that will take place. If the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors advises that there is no funding for this initiative, then administration would be looking to council for direction as to next steps. Our recommended proposed motion is that council authorizes Mayor Harris to sign the attached letter to the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors requesting that the street lighting installation project from Harrison and Murdoch Street to Range Road 12 in Crossit, Alberta, be supported by way of the Department of Transportation and Economic Corridors, providing either in full funding or a portion thereof. Did you want me to read the letter to the minister or just leave it? Okay.
That's fine. Thanks, Meryl. Yeah.
Good letter. No.
Okay, questions for Meryl?
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Meryl, so just a clarification, so the estimate project's $210,000, which Fortis will invest 80,000, so we're looking for 130,000.
If I could get you guys not to talk in the back, please, it's hard to hear. Thank you.
You're right,
Sorry, Mike.
You're right, Councillor Knight. So the project cost was projected to be $210,526, but Fortis Alberta's investment to the community is $80,225.
Looking for 130,000 in this letter.
Plus GST, so 136,816.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? One
Here.
second, I'll get to you. My question would be, whose responsibility was it originally to put in the lights? Is it the town's responsibility or
No.
should it be the province's?
It is the province, it's their jurisdiction. However, in a previous conversation with Alberta Transportation, it was indicated that although there's no funding, that they gave us their full support to continue. So,
So they expected us to pay for it and then they would never
yeah.
give us
And-
money. That's how
and
that.
This corridor has been identified for a long time as being a very dark, unsafe corridor, which we've highlighted in our letter to the minister. We have had a lot of feedback from the residents and we feel that it's time to be addressed.
And I would 100% agree with that. I'm just curious if some of the wording should be, I don't know if I want to say stronger, but more clear that this is the province's responsibility. We should be indicating that. It's not like, oh, thank you, province, you're giving us money because we asked for it. This is your responsibility to begin with. Can we do that?
Yep.
I would rather see a little bit more of that.
Okay.
If we can. That's my only comment. I just wanted to clear up responsibilities and CEO Keenan, you have a comment?
I do. Thank you, Mayor Harris. Just wanted to remind council that we have put a request in for a meeting with the minister. We have heard back that that meeting will be sometime in March.
Okay.
Once we know a date and a time, it will be virtual and we'll give council lots of notice. There are 4 items that we've put on that list of things we want to talk to him about. This is one, and he'll have already received the letter before that meeting happens. We're also going to be addressing the speed down that highway. The other item was the issue around the fire call pay that was raised at the last meeting that you raised, Councillor Gustafson. And Meryl, help me out. What was the last one, the 4th one?
The lighting, the speed, fire, and maintenance of Highway 2 and 2A.
Right.
2 and 2A.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
And just to add, so we have a very tight timeline here. So Fortis needs the town's acceptance prior to March 19th. So I have reached out to Fortis for an extension. Hopefully we can get that. I just don't know how quickly the province will get back to us, but
Fortis wants it by March
March
19th. And we're to meet with the minister sometime in March, but we won't get an answer from the province probably in March, will we?
well, I'm going to, as soon as this letter is complete, I will courier it to the minister's office.
My understanding is the meeting won't be till late March, so we are going to have to ask Fortis for an extension.
I would be asking them for one now.
Yeah.
We've
We'll
asked,
try, we'll push hard, but ministers are ministers.
They are ministers, but I mean, Fortis can probably extend it.
Mayor Harris.
Councillor Brennan.
Howdy. I was just, I saw that Fortis outlined a little map for the quote that they gave us, but I was just curious if there was a more defined one that outlines where our property begins and ends in relation to Alberta's transportation.
The town does not have that right-of-way plan handy at the moment, but the light standards fall well within their right-of-way. It's not
Okay.
it's not within town property.
Yeah, I'm just curious, maybe you can send that map out to council, just defining that so that we can see it.
Yeah, it might not be as clear as you hoped it to be as far as what the line is, but I can certainly give you the measurements.
Fair enough. No, like, yeah, because it is pretty wide and I know that there's a pretty big chunk of green space in between each, like, the fence line and the roadway, but. And then I had one other question, just like any idea, has this strategy been done before? Like sending, like, what are our chances of this actually working out with Alberta Transportation?
That's a good question. We're
That-
gonna try and find out.
Right. I know it's probably like, kind of like in this range, but
I think too, don't forget that the election is in May, and typically between now and May, the government throws out a lot of money. So our chances are best going into our meeting with the minister in March.
so they're feeling friendly.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see. Okay, anything else? Okay. Anybody like to make a motion on Highway 574 Street lighting?
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
I move that council authorize Mayor Harris to sign the attached letter addressed to the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors requesting that the street lighting installation project from Harrison Street / Murdoch Street to Range Road 12 in Crossfield, Alberta be support by way of the Department of Transportation and Economic Corridors, providing either in full funding or portion thereof.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay. Item 7.2, Vista Cross.
Cancel.
It's been canceled, that's right. Item, thank you. Item 7.3, Kindness Week proclamation, Russ.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. The third week of February has officially been named Kindness Week in Canada. The bill was enacted on June 3rd, 2021, making Canada the first country in the world to pass such legislation. The bill states that the purpose of this week is to improve the health and well-being of Canadians by encouraging acts of kindness, volunteerism, and charitable giving. The FCSS department would like to celebrate Kindness Week in 2023 by partnering with volunteers to put together little goodie bags, for example, tea for two, wildflower seeds, etc., to distribute throughout the town during Kindness Week as a way to spread kindness through small random acts of kindness. We'd also advertise Kindness Week to the community with some examples of ways they can be involved and help spread kindness throughout our town. The funds for the random acts of kindness during Kindness Week, there's a lot of kindness in here, will come from the FCSS internal programming budget as this project directly aligns with FCSS. The overall goal of FCSS is to enhance social well-being, and what better way to do so than through random acts of kindness. We recommend that Town Council make a proclamation declaring February 12th to the 18th, 2023 as Kindness Week in Crossfield.
Excellent, thanks, Russ. Who doesn't need more kindness, right? All right, any questions or comments from council? No, okay, then I will proclaim that the town of Crossfield proclaims February 12th to 18th, 2023 as Kindness Week in Crossfield. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks, Russ. Okay. Item 7.4, Fire Service Review, Russ Nash. And I think we're going to start with CEO Keenan.
Yes, you are. Thank you, Mayor Harris. Good evening again, Council. Just as a bit of a refresher before we go into the 4 items tonight under fire services, I wanted to remind Council of the history and how we got to where we are today. In late 2021, early 2022, I was approached by several members from our fire services that wanted to talk to me about some issues and concerns they had with what was currently happening at the fire hall. As council may recall, at that time, my commitment to the community was to have one-on-ones with all staff, which I'd managed to do with the admin staff, the external staff, and hadn't quite gotten to the fire department staff in that very short window. In my conversations with those individuals, I indicated to them that I was more than prepared to do one-on-ones and as well an internal review of what was happening in fire services. And put the offer out there to all members of our volunteer fire service that Russ and I were prepared to sit down with them and meet. And then talked with the senior officers of fire services about what was happening and kept them involved in, or kept them aware of the process that we were undertaking and the 3 questions that we were going to ask during the internal review. At that time, 18 volunteer firefighters indicated that they would like to sit down and have that one-on-one chat. Of those 18, we had, I think it was 16, correct me if I'm wrong, Russ. 16 actually came and met with us for one-on-ones. Based on those one-on-one interviews, it was determined by Russ and myself that there were in fact some issues that needed to be addressed internally with fire services. And based on those interviews, we identified 4 or 5 themes, as council may recall. Leadership was one, communication was one, safety was one, training was one. I think I got them all. Did I miss one? Okay. And we brought that information forward to council and indicated that these were the kinds of things that the membership wanted administration to address. At that time, I advised council that because of the technical nature of fire services, from an administrative perspective, we could definitely address some of the things around the administrative needs within the department, as well as the HR needs, of which there are some. But from a technical perspective, it was recommended to council that we look at doing an external review. And with that external review, it would be a very deep dive into the operations from nuts to bolts, A to Z. That review was completed, started in the fall of 2022 and completed, and the report presented to council the last meeting of December. That brings us to tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of items that are top priorities within the recommendations that were made by Seahawk Consulting, who I will also remind council, we went to an RFP process with regard to getting a consultant. 3 companies were identified. We received bids from 2. Seahawk was the one that we went with. Anybody have any questions on the history part? Okay.
Nope, I think that's pretty clear.
Then what I'd like to do is to get into the first 2 I'm going to do, and then I think Russ is going to do the second 2, but we're going to interact because we've been working on this pretty closely as we've gone through it. 7.4.1, the administration, it's a new fire services bylaw, background rationale. As a result of the recently completed fire department review as presented to council late in December of 2022, a new current and comprehensive bylaw has been crafted for council approval as recommended in the report document. This bylaw is to ensure certainty, sustainability, predictability, democratic transparency, and accountability. This bylaw will outline the scope of the operations of the town's volunteer fire department. It will also recognize the importance of the fire service to have proper administration of their operations. And this starts with a solid bylaw and a list of the levels of service council wants the fire service to follow. This aligns with the council strategic plan adopted last year under social development and emergency services to ensure that an appropriate level of public emergency services are provided to meet with the demands of growth, and that future growth pressures on emergency services could impact the financial resources required to meet the future community needs. Special attention will need to be provided to this department to ensure the overall safety of our community and, more importantly, our member firefighters. Recommendation before council tonight, administration recommends that council approves the new fire services bylaw for all 3 readings. And I will also advise that during the preparation of these drafts, that the deputy chief was involved in the review, and he did not submit any changes to this particular document. So the three bylaw numbers are before you for council's consideration.
Excellent. I think that we'll open the floor for council discussion and questions. And we'll go from there. Questions for Sue or Russ?
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Knight.
I think this has been one of the hotter topics that I've had phone calls about or messages. So, and I've read this 2 or 3 times, and I just want to get a clarification because there's been some confusion over what types of calls and incidents that we participate in right now, and then we're going to go away from. So I believe there's some misinformation about what we're looking at possibly shifting away from based on growing sizes and what calls maybe are recommended that other towns aren't participating in. I'm just curious to get the exact definition of what we were looking to remove. I don't really see it in the bylaw here.
It's not in the bylaw, it's in the next document, which is the policy for levels of service.
This is the one. This is
Oh, the next one. Okay, sorry. It's a 7-4. Yeah, you're on me.
Is that okay, Councillor Knight, for the next?
Yeah, well, just to add one thing, like, I guess you've mentioned that we have talked to some senior leadership over there. Yeah, it seems like there's maybe a gap, and I know you've mentioned that there's a number of people, but. And I'm not sure how we participate more fluidly in a group like that, but it does seem a bit like. There's been some. There wasn't any revisions, but it doesn't seem like there's any input or comments back the other direction, if that makes any sense. That's sort of some of the comments that I've heard. So that's more just a comment, I think, than anything else, because we can't reach out to every single person in terms of some of the questions that we're looking into it. I'm kind of shocked that the deputy person wouldn't have had any comments at all.
He had a lot of comments on the level of service.
Okay, so
He didn't have any comments on the bylaw. They're two different things.
Yeah. So let's deal with the bylaw and then we'll talk about the level of service.
Yeah,
Yeah,
through the chair.
go ahead.
So just to be clear with everyone, there really is not a problem with the bylaw. It's the level of service that we're possibly having an issue. So we'll deal with the bylaw first and the level of service is the secondary issue.
Right.
So just so everybody is very clear with that.
Okay, so what I'll ask Sue is if you or Russ can just go over some of the pieces of the bylaw.
Sure.
And just do a review of that. And then we'll get into questions.
So if I may, through the chair.
Thanks,
I
Russ.
can start off here. Essentially what the bylaw is for is to basically state that the town of Crossfield is going to have a fire service.
Yeah.
Through provincial legislation, municipalities aren't actually required to have a fire service. So
That's right.
the bylaw states that we are going to have a fire service and then provides broad direction in how we're going to achieve that. So it goes through, that council will establish the fire service to prevent, fires and preserve life, property, environment, local economy. It states that we will appoint a fire chief to be in charge of the fire department. So it kind of goes over those high level appointments and that sort of stuff for the fire department.
Right.
That's what the bylaw is establishing.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Just a question on that. The fire department is no different than any other town staff. The fire department exists because the town chooses to, but is not mandated to have a fire department.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, no,
Sure.
that's okay. So in a sense, really the CAO and the town oversees the fire department. It's not just up to the chief and or deputy chief.
Correct.
If we're having side conversations, you guys can go outside to do that and not in council chambers, please. Thank you. Okay, I just wanted clarification on that. So it's they're not an independent arm's reach. They're actually embodied within the town. Okay, sounds good. Questions on the bylaw? No, Councillor Brennan, any questions on the bylaw? You're good. Okay, sounds good. If there are no further conversation, questions on the bylaw, can I get a motion on first reading?
Through the chair. I'll make the motion that the fire services bylaw 2023-04 be given first reading.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. No further conversation or questions. Can I get a reading, a second reading?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
I motion that the fire services bylaw 2023-04 be given second reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Moving forward to third and final reading, if I can get a motion, please.
Through the chair? Yeah, I'll make the motion that fire services bylaw 2023-04 be brought forward for third and final reading with unanimous consent.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
You're good on that one?
You need another motion to final.
Finalize.
Yeah, we do. I'm just letting you know that everyone. Okay. And third and final reading motion, please.
Through the chair, I'll make the motion that fire service bylaw 2023-04 be given third and final reading.
Okay, sounds good. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff.
Just before we get to that, with your permission, Mayor Harris, the one thing I would like to remind council of is that, and we've talked about this before, is with respect to bylaws and the need for them to be reviewed every 3 years
Mhm.
and changed to accommodate what's happening in the world today. With regard to this particular bylaw and any other bylaw that impacts other departments, there is a real effort made that communication exists between, and in this case, it would be myself and Russ and the fire chief and our deputy chief. So just to give you some sense of assurances moving forward, that has happened and that will continue to happen.
Excellent. Good news. Thank you for that. Okay, Russ, so 7.4.2. Russ or Sue? Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, levels of service, the controversial topic of the evening.
Yeah.
As council will recall, when council had their meeting with their consultants, Seahawk, the fire department had a meeting with Seahawk with regard to levels of service. Administration had a meeting with Seahawk with regard to the levels of service. We all had pretty in-depth discussion. I know we did at administration, and I know that council did because I was part of that. I sat in and observed that meeting as well. What's before you tonight, and as a result of the recently completed fire department review is presented to council in December of 2022, a comprehensive level of service policy has been crafted for council approval as recommended in the report document. Levels of service are subject to availability of resources and personnel, as well as the fire department's coverage capacity and preparedness. Council establishes levels of service contained in this policy and any further levels of service changes as amended from time to time. And that typically aligns with the budget cycle, and during budget deliberations, council will be reviewing levels of service each and every year with the fire chief or whoever's presenting their budget figures at that time. This does align with the council strategic plan in that it's to ensure that an appropriate level of public emergency services are provided to meet with the demands of growth. Future growth pressures on emergency services could impact the financial resources required to meet the future community needs, and we know that's coming with growth. Special attention will need to be provided to this department to ensure the overall safety of our community and our member firefighters. The recommendation tonight and the attachment has the levels of service that has been recommended, which was recommended by the consultant. I will advise that we did have some conversations with Deputy Fire Chief Polson. we didn't agree. We agreed to disagree on where things were at. So we went back to the actual recommendation that was provided by the consultant. The recommendation tonight is that administration recommends that council approves the level of service policy for fire services as presented.
Okay, thank you, Sue. I'm going to open up the floor for council for questions for Sue and Russ.
Good, Chair.
Councillor Knight.
Rewind myself back to where I started. I guess I want to go back to when we had the meeting with CL Consulting and it's Kelly, right?
Jamie.
Jamie.
Jamie went back to remind us of what, you know, the echoes, the deltas, the alphas, all the calls. Like when I read this policy, I don't clearly, am I missing a schedule somewhere in here that talks about the calls that we're looking to go? Is there somewhere in here that's not on this sheet anymore?
Appendix A,
On which page would it be?
it would be the last attachment.
It's the last attachment. Yeah.
What page is it? Like, if you look on the page.
160.
Page 5, I think.
Oh, no, on the agenda.
168.
Oh, sorry.
That doesn't, that goes in an office. That, does it?
It's for medical. Levels of service, and then there's emergency types, and
Yeah.
under medical.
It looks like. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's got it right here.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
But I thought when we had the conversation about what it was, I thought we were quite specific in the wording of what we were gonna be dispatched to or not. Like this leaves it in a fairly vague manner of all types, work with dispatch on call descriptors. I thought, because when he had mentioned it and explained it to us that, you know, we were going on 500 plus phone calls or these calls, you know, there's one or two exact versions that he said, these are calls that we should not be going on. Like very simple ones that were basic, there were nothing, you know, when I read the verbiage of this, it leaves it up into pretty ambiguity of what we're gonna send people out to or we not. Is that not a fair statement, Russ?
I would disagree. In Appendix A, under medical, so you see there all types, and then it's got Omega, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, with no X's beside that. That means it's being recommended that those all types are not going to be responded to. Just below that, it says serious / life threatening, Delta, Echo. With the,
That's not how, I guess my frustration here is, that was not how, that's putting in a group of calls that I would say are 85%. So we had the meeting with the consultant where he said, you could probably get rid of 15 or 20%. So I guess if we were to remove all this, have we talked with existing people that are involved in our fire department on how impactful they believe this would be to our citizens? Because the information that I'm getting back amongst our community, it would be massively impactful if we remove, and this isn't our problem to fix AHS's problem, because we are a fire department, we have to look after that. But from what risk are we putting out to the community by removing these calls?
so the Omega, I guess we can go to what each of these are defined as. And Deputy Chief Paulson may be able to assist if I get this wrong here, but Omega response is basically non-emergency. It doesn't need an ambulance, essentially, is the definition of it. There'd be like a transfer or something like that, which we can't do. Alpha responses, they're non-life threatening, low priority. Bravo, again, non-life threatening, a little more serious than Alpha. I believe they respond lights and sirens for everything above Alpha. And then when you get into Charlie, that's when you start to get into potentially life threatening. And then the Delta and the Echo are the most serious.
So are we short the training to deliver people out properly to this? Because that to me, from the meeting we had, this is, when I read the one that we got the appendix where they came back with that, more than two of those things to me seem like they're critical to have people supported this now. But I guess the question on our fire department, how many people have the proper training to assist in this, in keeping our town not at risk?
I'd have to follow up with the fire department on their training for that.
And just expand on that. What training is that? It can't be just regular first aid and CPR. It has to be a level higher than that.
I don't know if Deputy Chief can speak to that now, or if we need to gather some information on that.
The exact number of staff, or total number of staff, but I can tell you that rank first aid to the MFR stated by
So the volunteers are, yeah.
which include standard first aid, CPR, AED, several protocols. Right. Medical technician. That have been-
And how many approximately on our fire department have that?
Exact numbers, I can say that.
If I could, I just want to clarify one thing here. This is a recommendation that was put forward to council from the consultant with regard to what in their professional expertise we should be looking at. That doesn't mean that council has to say, yeah, we're going to support this. Council can definitely make decisions in terms of we're not doing Omega calls, for example, or we're not going to do Alpha calls. And maybe we'll look at Bravo calls, but we are going to respond to Charlie Delta Echo calls.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's a lot of different scenarios at play here. One is definitely the lack of ambulance service and the time it takes to get ambulances into town. There's no question about that. That's something council is going to have to consider. The second is we have senior facilities here with some limitations in terms of lifting personnel or seniors that fall, and our firefighters have to respond. There's nothing that prevents council from making special concessions for those senior facilities if you believe that's the service level that we should be providing. Now, I caveat that by saying that those facilities have policies internal to their organizations that precludes their staff from lifting patients that fall. So our firefighters have to go, otherwise they're going to be laying on the floor, right? Or we have to have some conversations with those facilities and say, we can no longer continue to do this. I think the other factor that is really important for council to remember is that Alberta Health Services and Emergency Services does not give the town any funding to address all of these medical calls. Last year in 2022, and I think I got the number right, there was 597 calls. The year before that, there was 500 and I think it was 2021, it was 547 calls, of which 47% are medical.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we're out doing medical calls, that is really the responsibility of the province. Are we putting the community at risk? We don't have full-time firefighters. We have volunteer firefighters. So that is the big question. And it's going to be a philosophical debate council's going to have.
So I think that even backing up further than that, I can't remember quite how long ago it was, maybe 12 years ago, 13 years ago. All of our fire departments across the province pretty much were doing both medical and fire calls. And the province swooped in and said, no, we're going to take care of all the medical calls. You guys are fire only. And so that's been 12 years. They took that responsibility away from fire departments. They limited fire departments on what they can and can't do. And here we are. And we understand that, 911 calls and Alberta Health Services response times have been very poor. We get that. But I think that when we've done a really good job, and I hope all you guys know this, it's about process, it's about responsibilities. It's not about the work that you've done, which I think is fantastic, but it's about the province drew a line in the sand, and yet some departments we've continued to carry this service. And is that a service to Crossfield, or are we really doing a disservice by picking up the pieces and not fixing the pieces of an AHS service and 911 calls? And I think that's part of the conversation too.
I think the other thing I wanted to mention was, if council recalls, last year, Chief Nevin and I and council were on a virtual call with Alberta Health Services and EMS.
Yep.
And both Ben and I at the time said that a lot of the issues around what's happening with the calls is the lack of information coming from dispatch.
Yep.
And we raised that as a huge issue. And Ben raised it as a big issue too, because there's a
did.
lot of times calls are coming in and you're going out and they're not what you're led to believe they are. So there needs to be some clarity around that. So one of the things we did identify in the levels of service is that is something administratively and as council, we need to work really hard on through our dispatch system to make sure that they're getting the accurate information.
Yeah.
And this isn't just Crossfield, this is across the
It's across the
province.
province, yeah. Yeah. And, you know, council is an advocate. We talk to the ministers, we try and get through, we use Alberta municipalities to, as a collective across Alberta to push these issues. So we will continue to work that angle from our perspective too, to make some change. But, you know, those are just some of the pieces that align with what, you know, what we have to talk about to get to a solution here too. Okay, further questions? Okay, go ahead.
Through the chair?
Yeah.
It's not a question, actually, it's going to be a comment from me, and I'm actually going to put a motion on the table here that if I may, that council tables the fire department level of service policy until further notice. And the reason, I guess, and I don't know if I can say, and I really don't want to put a timeline on this because it's a very important decision we're going to make. It affects a lot of groups, the level of service that our department, that we're, I guess, restricting our department, and that's a very strong word, is saying restricting, but we're mandating our department because it's another, you know, it's another arm of the administration. But you know, the service that we need to provide our citizens has to align with their expectations as well, and it's all the residents in town, whether you live in a house, apartment, at the seniors lodge, you know, you go to school, you use all the facilities in town. You know, our fire department has been giving us a service that we've been accustomed to, and we're thinking that, you know, can we still afford that level of service? Yes, no, we still have to figure that out. Is it an opportunity for us to put some pressure on the provincial government this way? I hope it does. And we need to contact the government and the associated ministers to fix this problem that we're having. So again, I move to table.
Okay, so we're gonna open up to discussion on that. I don't disagree that we should table. I think that because it does affect some outside parties, we need to give them some, like the lodge, we need to give them some time to either come up with or figure out another way of doing things. It may not be, and most likely will not be, our fire service responding to everything that's non-life threatening, but we do need to give some time for these other parties to figure out internally another way of doing things, and whatever that looks like, whether it's 4 months or 6 months or whatever that time frame is. But we can continue to do this until the other parties have some new policies or figure things out. And I think that's a fair thing to do. Anyone else with a comment or question on the motion?
Just to your point, I'm actually a little shocked that a place that we pay a fairly good dollar to go to a place like the lodge here in town doesn't have an actual policy or process in place. Because it's pretty unrealistic to expect a fire department They could be on
A
multiple. phone
volunteer fire
calls.
department, yeah.
Volunteer,
Mhm.
either way, they could be on
Yeah.
multiple calls. So someone's down on the lodge and they can't address that person without.
Yeah.
No.
That's something that has to get discussed in a lodge administration level from the top, because
Yeah.
that to me is insane.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
I'd like to just comment on that, Counselor Knight. I think that they do have a policy, and I actually received it today. I had a meeting with the lodge today. So basically what happens is if they have an emergency, they pick up the phone, they dial 911, that goes to dispatch. Dispatch then decides on where that goes. And so dispatch is calling the fire hall. It isn't the fire hall getting a phone call from the lodge directly. So we have to make sure that that's very clear, that there's a middleman in there, and that's 911, and making sure 911 is, they are very clear on on what our levels of service are too, is, okay, well, if the lodge calls 911, is the first call going to be the fire department, or is it going to be EMS or a ambulance out of Airdrie? That's got to be very clear too on when we go forward here. So whether it's, they're going to get a certain level of service. It may not be from the fire department, but they need to know. But how they do it right now, I think is it's been going on since the lodge was built.
And you're on the committee, so is that standard across all lodges?
It is. It is on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But our lodge here is a little bit special because Airdrie's new lodge is going to be different because they have EMS in Airdrie, Cochrane. They'll have EMS in Cochrane, so they're not. 911 isn't phoning their fire department; they're phoning their EMS. They're the ambulance. They're phoning the ambulance directly. We don't have that here, but if we did have it here, like we've been told that eventually we're going to get an ambulance.
We've been hearing.
Whenever that comes, I don't know everybody, but they would call. That would be the call. But since we don't,
Maybe that's something
we
else we
default
can
to the fire hall. So now that's been mandated by whoever to 911 to say, okay, if I get a call from the lodge or from anyone, the fire hall is the first person. So it's up to us to, mandate what 911 does, when they receive that call. But also 911 is having some, I think, internal issues as well. But that's a whole other story that doesn't need to be gone through tonight. But just so that everybody's clear how it works, when you call 911, they're calling the fire department. 911 is calling the fire department.
So just before we get to CEO Keenan, I do have a question. I don't know who can answer it. Maybe it's Deputy Chief. I'm not sure, but what's the filter now like for our fire department? Is it we just go to every call that comes in from 911, or is there a filter there? Are there calls where we don't go on? Do we get the 911 call? Does it just get spread out to like all services and then you guys respond?
You're talking medical or?
Anything, really, any call?
So right now, there is a couple high level ones that aren't dispatched to us directly. But other than that, pretty much everything is dispatched.
Yeah, and including the medical? Yeah, so,
Including transports, including
and transports.
and transport.
And what do transports look like?
So transports often are a call to either the lodge on occasion, usually the doctor's office, where they've requested an AHS unit to be able to take and transfer something from their office into a hospital. It's non-life threatening, but we get tagged with it, go down, get high. Because we can't transport.
But you can't transport. And you have to wait there until somebody else gets there. Right. And so how long does that typically take? It could be a couple hours, could be an hour.
Yeah, depends on how long the lead time is for the HS unit or whether the doctor just releases it. Through it.
Yeah, and I'm just, just trying to think through some of this. So what happens if, our resources, say it's during the day, we're limited resources and you're on one of those calls and we have, a big incident here.
So we have had cases where we have had to change our operations. It flex people off to a bigger call because we are on a low priority medical call that we know the person is stable. We've already seen them. So we will transfer to a higher call.
Yeah, but that still takes time
So it
away
will
from
take
that
some time
original
to
call. Yeah.
list, 'cause we only have
Exactly. Okay. Counselors, or sorry, CEO Keenan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two other points I wanted to make. One is that what's often forgotten in this equation is the employers.
Yeah.
We have a large, well, not a large contingent, but a pretty good contingent of volunteer firefighters that are very much appreciated. And their employers are being asked pretty regularly to let them go to calls.
Yeah.
At their expense, not at Alberta Health Services expense. I mean, they've been very generous with their times, but that's going to come to an end at some point. They can't afford to do this forever.
That's right.
The second comment I want to make is just this week alone with the new changes in 911 and in some discussions with the lodge staff that I had today. When they're calling into 911, they're now being deferred to 811.
That's right.
And then they're going back to 911 because they're not getting any service. So
Or the
there's a lot
services-
going on.
Not any
Watch
service,
going
but the
on
service isn't
lately?
quick enough.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts. So this is a really tough one to wrap your head around.
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the reasons why I think that I agree that we just pause. Like I think that we do have to look at levels of service and build those parameters for our fire department in lots of ways. But I do think that it does take some thought and other considerations like the lodge to come up with a secondary plan. So this is a motion that I will agree with. But anybody else comments and questions? Counselor Brennan? You're good?
Oh, I think
Yeah, okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. You want to repeat the motion again, just so we're all clear?
Yeah, I can. I move that council tables fire department level of service policy. Is there a number behind it? Yeah, 2023-03 and until further notice. And I don't want to direct council on anything because I did add something like that, but do we need to direct council to work with, affected groups or anything like that? I don't think we need to go to that.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. That's okay, Lindsay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I also think it's up to the groups. It's not really we can engage and let them
Yes.
know what levels of service we land on and what that looks like.
Yeah.
But it's not up to council to direct groups or
But I certainly, and I concur with you there, Mayor, but, and I think giving us a little more time here to make sure we're doing the right thing
Yeah.
and that when we do make that final decision on that level, like, maybe we get rid of the Omega so we don't get that phone call to go over to the lodge and sit there and waste resources. And not that it's not a bad thing to go over and visit our seniors once in a while, but we can do that on our own time. So, but still be very aware that the level of service that we're bringing our community is adequate and is in line with what they expect as well. So,
okay,
all right, that's all I have.
excellent. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Excellent, thank you. And anybody who has comments, just remain here. We're gonna get your comments at the end of the council meeting. Same as you guys. Okay. Okay, item 7.44. Action items.
We missed one.
We're on
7.43, sorry.
Budget.
Revised budget. That's right. We can't forget that one. 2023 Fire Services Operating Budget.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Harris. So many of the items that were identified in the action plan that's been started, they can be addressed by town administration as well as fire department administration, including policies, standard operating guidelines, maintenance checklists, et cetera. However, there are several that require technical expertise from a consultant who can work with fire personnel and town administration to help implement. Administration has worked with Seahawk to identify some of the higher priority items to address with their assistance, which include fire officer leadership training, new recruit training programs, firefighter training, minimum skills assessment programs, driver training programs, annual training plans and schedules, lesson plans, and help with some emergency scene operations and all the documentation that goes with all those items. As noted in previous discussions, the process for implementing these recommendations contained in the final report will likely take up to 3 years or 2 budget cycles. Administration has reviewed the provisional 2023 operating budget and would like to request some revisions to help fund the implementation of these higher priority items with the assistance of Seahawk. The proposed revisions are attached to this report. In addition to requesting funds for additional training and development of the plans and programs noted above, administration also recognizes that funds need to be allocated for the general maintenance, repairs, and upgrades to the fire services training grounds. This facility is a great asset for the development of our firefighters, so budgeting funds on an annual basis is important to ensure it is safe, efficient, and effective for our firefighters to use. Therefore, administration is also requesting to add funds in a separate GL for the training grounds. It is important that we continue investing in the development of our firefighters, ensuring they are appropriately trained, have the right policies, programs, and procedures in place, and have the right tools and equipment to perform their duties. The additional funds we are requesting will directly support the members of our fire department while ensuring the new training, procedures, programs, policies, guidelines, et cetera, are done correctly and in a timely fashion. Administration strongly believes the items identified in this report are some of the higher priority recommendations that should be addressed first, ensuring our firefighters remain as safe as possible while on duty. Therefore, administration recommends that council approve the requested changes to the 2023 fire services operating budget as presented.
Okay, questions for us?
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
One really quick thing is I know you've got, how much did you have allocated? I didn't close my computer, but for the training ground funds,
5.
it's 5, right?
5.
So, I just, and you want to create a new GL, like a new line for that?
Separate line,
Separate
yeah.
line for that. I'm just wondering, if we don't use that, can we just, build it up or do we want to, use that? I guess it comes up the budget time too, if we've got some surplus sitting in there. But I really want it to stay within the fire department budget.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's been allocated within that the whole.
Absolutely.
That big code. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And the plan moving forward will be to create budget plans and upgrade plans so that we can, identify what we want to do in the current, in the coming years.
Yeah.
And also build upon that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what, we could probably even, I guess, look at the end of the year, if we found it, there's a bit of a surplus there, we can,
We can put it into the fire department reserve.
Reserve is what really is what I'm looking for. So.
And actually plans have already started. I've already been speaking with some of the members there to identify some of the things that we need to address first and what we can do to start building upon that facility.
Yeah. And maybe that can help out the capital. I don't know, do we use that to fund a capital reserve line or something like that maybe, or, I guess that's something for administration to figure out, not us. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring that back to us.
Yeah, okay, that's all I had.
Okay, and I'm assuming we're just accepting this tonight, but we'll be reviewing it when we accept final budget.
Well, that's a bit tricky because for us to move forward with the priorities on the action items, which we're talking about next, we need to have a revised budget to do that because we don't have any funds allocated for it at this point in time. So when you look at the budget that's been revised, you'll see that there's a couple of things in there, like, we have bumped up the electricity a little bit because we finally have seen year end, so that was a given. We bumped up the training for the fire department by 6,000. We've added the 5,000 in for the training grounds. And we've also included an additional $25,000 to get Seahawk Consulting to come back and do some of the items that we've identified as priority one.
Okay, so what you're asking is that we approve the fire department budget before we approve the overall town budget.
The provisional, this would still be a provisional budget.
Okay.
You approve this as a provisional budget. The final budget comes back to council once the audit's done in
Okay.
April,
Yep.
but it gives us the opportunity to get started.
Don't spend it all before April. Just saying. Okay. Any questions for Sue or Russ? No, all right, can I get a motion?
To the chair, I'll make the motion that we approve the requested changes to the 2023 fire department operating budget as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, 7.44 action items.
You guys are gonna get sick of hearing me talk tonight. So yes, provided in your agenda package is an action plan that's been started. It identifies a lot of the recommendations that were identified or put forth following the review. And this is being provided to council just to show that we are starting on it. We're starting to identify priorities, who can do what. I guess it's just mainly for your information. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Go ahead.
As per usual, through the chair. I always have questions. Just a kind of a brief outline on when do we think we'll have this, the action plan finished off? And maybe a bit of a timeline on where we're at with the different priorities.
Overall, our goal is to have these recommendations dealt with within a 3-year time frame.
Yeah.
That being said, I can also see this action plan being pretty fluid as we move along. We may find something else we maybe to add, or maybe there's something that actually we actually do have in place and it needs a couple tweaks, and we can check it off real quick. Yep. So this is a start, and I think it's going to change as we go along. And, even if when we do get to the end of the 3-year period, we're always going to be looking to make improvements. So I think it's just going to be something that carries on.
Okay. Thanks, Russ.
Yeah, it's a good start, Russ.
Yep.
And it's not just me. CO Keenan's been involved in it, and fire department's seen it as well.
Yeah, good start. Okay, any questions or comments on the action plan?
I do, through the chair. I'm not sure if it kind of coincides with the fire department. How many do we have in town at any given time out of the fire department? Do we have 10 here that are usually here? Do we have 12? Do we have 6? Because we have, I believe, 50. Do we have 50 on the fire department?
No.
How many do we have now, Chad? We were up to 53, but I don't know what we have now.
We have, when you have the chief's role, we have 2 senior officers. The
Mhm.
chief was vacant right at the moment. We have 6 captains and 28 firefighters. Based on the new org chart that the fire
23.
department
Right.
provided. We currently have 4 firefighters that are on staff Monday to Friday from 6 to 6
Mhm.
on call. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we have, pretty sure I'm going to be close, 8 that live in Crossfield. So they're
8 that lived in Crossfield.
That's it. So do we not have like a jurisdiction rule on they have to live within a certain radius of Crossville to be on our fire department?
I know for policing, it's 47 kilometers,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure about firefighters.
Chad?
Of the recent intakes that we've been taking in for the last 2 cycles, it is within 15 minutes response for us.
Okay,
So Northern, Airdrie, and Exeter.
okay. So I was just wondering because in
Prior
the past, I've heard we've had people on our fire department who were from Calgary or what have you, and I'm like, why are they on our fire department if they can't respond? Makes no sense.
do have that still, we still have a few left.
Mhm.
That was earlier on when we were a larger internal compartment or in-town response group.
Mhm.
As that number has whittled down, we started with an out-of-town program that included up to Calgary for a small portion. And then as we continue to only get out-of-town service, people applying, we then tighten the ring down to 15. And that was based on the fact that we could have dorm room space and they have a mandatory number of hours that they need to put in per month, volunteer at the home.
Okay.
And that's to make up for the long walk time so that they are still serviceable to us.
I think it's safe to say as well that departments moving forward on recruiting will be within that circle around Crossfield. But that those firefighters that are currently on the service that are from outside that circle are grandfathered.
Mhm.
Or grandmother, I should say. be general.
Yeah, I do apologize to the ladies. I'm like, how do I say firefighter? But we have ladies.
It's
Yeah,
fire-
you're not ladies.
Firefighter outer.
Jeez. Thank you, Chad.
Okay, anything else?
Hmm?
All right, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion after I have glasses
Yeah,
on.
go ahead.
Where are we?
Action item 7.44, second page.
Okay, I make the motion that council approve the request changes to the 2023 fire. Oh,
Next one.
one more. I make the motion that the action item listed be accepted as information.
Okay, all in favor?
Getting tired.
Thank you. Motion carried. Okay, mayor and council business. I have nothing further to report. Deputy Mayor. Lambert.
I have nothing to report.
Councilor Brennan.
On January 28th, I attended a Marigold board meeting. Lots of internal policies and plans we covered, from code of conduct, collection management policy, procedural bylaws and governance. And we went over the financial statements. Otherwise, nothing further to report.
Thank you. Councilor Fox.
I have nothing further.
Councilor Gustafson.
I had a Rockview Foundation, not last Wednesday, the Wednesday previous to that, just to go over some budget and the new lodge in Airdrie. I also have a special board meeting about the new lodge in Airdrie tomorrow as well. So and that's about it. And then I'm just going to be filling in for Councillor Knight for his meeting at Innisfail at the
Water Commission.
Water Commission. Sorry.
Thank you. Councilor Knight.
I had a January 18th Mountain View Water Commission meeting for a monthly meeting. And the only note so far is the weather's been good, so our costs are down for treatment. Actually, chemicals go into the water, so it's consistent weather helps with making water, so that's a good thing. And thanks to Councilor Guston Reagan was what tomorrow, the Water Commission meeting.
Okay, great. And Councilor Bang.
I have nothing to report.
Excellent. Can I get a motion?
Through the chair,
Go ahead.
I move that the mayor and council updates be accepted as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Uh,
Motion carried. Administrative updates, 9.1. Director of Operations, Merrill.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. So for 2022, our development and building permit stats were provided to council. We had a total of 86 development permits for a variety of things, whether it's houses, garages, decks. It was for a variety of things. 2022 building permits, the total was 152 permits were issued, 71 of which were issued for new home construction. And the others are listed within my report. I've also included a stats table so you can see the comparison from previous years relating to building permits. Our annual internal review with Safety Codes Council relating to permitting is required on an annual basis. It was submitted and it was approved today. So we're in good shape. The offsite levy bylaw, I know council's been waiting for an update on this. So a engineering offsite levy background report and town draft bylaw have both been provided or have both been reviewed by legal counsel. A tabletop meeting was had on January 23rd with MPE and legal counsel and staff to go over comments generated from review completed by legal counsel. In discussion, it was identified that because signalization of Highway 574 and Highway 2A has been identified as an upgrade as development continues, triggered by population increase, a letter of support would be required from Alberta Transportation to commit to the construction of signalization and turning bays. MPE is working on updating the draft background report to reflect some necessary changes by way of clarifications for calculations, etc. Once this document is complete, along with receiving the letter from AT, administration will be bringing the bylaw to a near future meeting for first reading. Following first reading, administration and MPE will share the documents with community developers and host 2 open houses to satisfy the requirements outlined within the Municipal Government Act. I've also listed the Highway 574 project, which I've already reported on. Within the operations department, we've had some greater mechanical problems. So we have a contractor working with us in place for snow removal. Staff continue to participate in the snow removal process without the grader, but are operating the snow blower and dump trucks. Staff can use equipment on hand to remove snow from intersections if need be, if the contractor is not available. And the grader is currently with mechanics to determine what the next steps will be. We have also been in contact with the town's paint supplier. We are optimistic to receive paint this year for the much needed road painting. Within the water and wastewater department, hydrant repairs and flushing was completed in July 2022. The annual flushing and repairs will continue in 2023. Just rest assured that full fire coverage continues throughout the town. Highway 2, I just wanted to update council on the 7-Eleven. In speaking with the manager, they have indicated that they now have permanent air gas monitoring around the Burger King building and still have not located the source of the gas leak. Once spring comes and the ground thaws, they will expose all pipes in the area, looking for leaks and determine if it's coming from the ground or pipes in the area. Further updates will be provided as they become available to staff. And lastly, with our wastewater capacity update, the 60-day cell aeration, the system is operational. We're currently working with Reality Bites and True North to establish a communication system for the SCADA program. SCADA is a communication monitoring system that monitors the operations of the overall lagoon aeration system and will notify the operator if there are any faults.
Thanks, Merrill.
You're welcome.
That's a lot of permits. Good job.
Thank you. It's been busy.
It's a good sign for growth for Crossfield. So I appreciate all your hard work on that. Any comments for questions for Merrill?
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Knight.
The permits on the top and the bottom, Carol, get 71 on the top and 70 on the bottom. Was that just a typo?
70 within the chart?
You know, your yearly.
Oh, yes, that's a typo.
Okay.
Okay.
Second question,
Yes.
in our community, like, we only get 2 new applications in the industrial. Is there a program or something we can put on or advertise more. We got empty lots out there.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more businesses or something like come into town so we can get more jobs. Is there something that's possible to help with motivation of new permits for some of the land that people out there that don't develop?
So, yeah, I mean, the two represents construction. It doesn't represent the new businesses coming to Crossfield.
Yeah.
That was reflected under the development permits. I believe there is a policy in place that 2 times the tax rate. I don't know if that is for industrial as well as residential. But we did implement a 2 times the tax rate to encourage basically bare lots in existing residential areas.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we
the
don't.
lots, but I think that it comes with addressing that issue, but doing an attraction plan for businesses to Crossfield kind of in tandem.
Yeah, that would be something that we'd have to work with our economic development
Right.
person.
By
Sure.
Crossfield.
Right?
Are you talking about a business incentive program?
I was just hitting on the fact that if we get nice growth of residential. I don't see a whole much time. We have bare lots out there. That could just give a little motivation is all I was.
Because there are a lot of municipalities now are adopting a business incentive program whereby businesses coming to town would get, for example, 100% first year, 75% second year, 50% the third year of tax forgiveness if they build on their empty lot.
Yeah.
So those programs are available and they're quite successful.
Well, maybe that's something you can bring back to council.
What I would like to tell council is reflected within the development permit are there is one development permit that was approved for a dog kennel that will be going on McCool Street. The 2 other lots, we've had discussions with developers that want to come in and basically construct a industrial building, as well as one building or one developer who's speaking to us about industrial building development on Western Drive.
Great.
So we've had the discussions. We've definitely explained the processes, and we have really amazing red tape reduction in our community where we make the processes very easy. So we will be seeing development soon.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good work.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just gonna jump back to the offsite levy bylaw and that, it's been a big thorn in our side for a long time. And I like that we brought up the signalization of 574 and the 2A and, how that's all gonna get paid for. And do we know that we can be on track for that kind of hit?
That's a hard question.
I know it's
Yeah,
a hard question, but we gotta be prepared for this because it's coming.
Yeah, we do have, or supposed to have $500,000 set aside in reserve for that signalization.
Yeah.
The audit in April will give us a way better idea of where we're actually at financially.
Yeah.
As council knows, there have been some real challenges, but that 500,000 has been established.
And that's what we think it's gonna take for, not just the turning bays and that's for the whole schmear.
Oh, no, that won't cover,
No.
that won't cover half
Not
of it.
even close.
So we'll have to be looking at putting money aside for that once we know tentatively how long out it would be before that would be triggered by population increase, which I think is 5,000. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
that'll come sooner than later. Like we'll find that that's gonna come quick.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a separate reserve, capital reserve, restricted reserve that council will have to start channeling some funding into once we have some funding. to channel it.
Once we have some of that.
We can open the account, it can be zero for a little bit, eh? Okay, I just wanted to put that out there too. I knew the answer, but
We just had to test.
I
your mind.
just had to let everybody else know that, we don't have the money for it yet.
Yeah.
No.
But we're gonna prepare for it.
We're trying.
Right.
We're gonna prepare for it, right?
Make a plan. All right, thanks, Meryl. Director of Community Services, Russ.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. So just to touch on a few highlights within my report, we are very pleased to inform council that we were approved for an amount up to $206,250 in capital funding from Rocky View County's Recreation Governance Committee for the ice plant replacement project at the arena. That amount represents 25% of our estimated budget for the project. In addition to that funding and working with Crossfield Minor Hockey Association, we were successful in being approved for another Community Facility Enhancement Program grant for an amount of $353,805. So with those two grants, we will be receiving up to $560,055 of our estimated $825,000 budget. So we've received quite a bit of funding for that project. Crossfield Curling Club held their AGM on January 26th. They had a pretty good turnout of 11 people. They elected a new executive, and they plan to move forward with some plans to try and make that facility more of a multi-use venue. Crossfield Day Camp Society is also holding their AGM on Thursday, February 9th at the curling rink, which will hopefully see an election of a new board there as well, because currently the board doesn't have enough members to continue with that program. So we are working with them to try and get that going. For Parks and Facilities, the job posting to fill the Parks and Facilities supervisor position for 1 year maternity leave has been posted. We're receiving some applications for that, and we've also posted for our summer student positions. Going back to the arena and the ice plant, the RFP closed on January 31st. We received four proposals for that, so we are currently reviewing those and evaluating them. We did hold a mandatory site meeting on January 16th at the arena. Contractors had to attend that meeting or they were not permitted to submit a proposal. The fire department, as we're all aware here, Ben's last day as fire chief was January 31st. He retired. Again, I'd like to thank Ben for his commitment and service to the town of Crossfield over the last 25 years. And there's just a few under RCMP. I had a update meeting with them after submitting this report. Just a few updates from the RCMP. Jerem has started visiting and working with the businesses around town, so he's making his rounds there.
Including the industrial area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The RCMP are also working with our local auto repair shops to try and address the catalytic converter theft issues that are going around that Crossfield's not immune to. So they are working with them to provide engraving tools so that they can engrave catalytic converters with serial numbers. And then lastly, the RCMP will also be coordinating bike patrols in the summertime. They're coordinating them with Trevor, so we'll see some RCMP around town and on bicycles as well. Those are the big ones.
Excellent. Thanks, Russ. So just not so many questions for me, but some comments. So first want to thank, minor hockey for partnering with us on that grant. Any of these grants that we get, and you guys always do such a good job at the town here, whatever department it is, and trying to leverage funds. So just really appreciate that hard work and appreciate the partnerships with some of our not-for-profit groups on that. So that's amazing. Thanks for sending RCMP over to those areas. I think it's needed and it's going to be appreciated. And then I really love that we're going to have some bike patrols in the good weather times here in the summer. I think that's going to make a big difference. Seeing that, the patrols and people interacting with them. So I think it's a good move. Questions for Russ? Comment? Nothing?
No.
Awesome.
Job is for you.
Thanks, Russ. Director of Corporate Services, Lindsay.
Good evening, Council. As Council is aware, our utility department is continuing working on outstanding utility accounts and issuing disconnection notices. Out of all the letters that have been sent out, all accounts have been paid in full before the due dates. The 2022 interim audited fieldwork has been completed. They were out the week of January 23rd, and the interim audit testing focuses primarily on revenue and expense transactions. The year-end audit field work will take place in March with the final statements planned to be brought forth to council during the April 18th council meeting. Just a quick update on the property tax. January penalties on arrears were applied to all accounts, excluding the TIPS program with outstanding balances. The penalties were applied at a rate of 10% for a total of $53,397.11. The tax recovery process has kicked off for 2023. A list of all tax rolls with the tax arrears in 2021 and prior have been forwarded to our property tax recovery firm. Each property owner will be sent a pre-notice letter giving them an additional 30 days to pay. Following that deadline, the tax notification lien will be sent to Alberta Land Titles for registration prior to the March 31st deadline. Any properties with tax notification registered in 2022 will be subject to public auction sale in 2023. And council will receive a report with details later in 2023. And that's about all I have.
Excellent. Thanks, Lindsay. Also a lot of good work and hard work on bringing some of those arrears back and putting some good processes in place for that. So thank you. Questions for Lindsay? Okay, if there's no questions, that's it for our department director updates. If I can get a motion, please.
The chair. I motion the director updates be accepted as prepared.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, correspondence. We have 10.1 Mountain View Regional Water Services Commission minutes. 10.2, the National Police Federation for a Safer Alberta, and 10.3 Crossfield Wellness Network game tables. Excellent. Actually, I want to talk about the wellness network table just for a second, because I think it's a good asset for Crossfield. And just to let everybody know who hasn't had a chance to read the agenda, Russ, it's checker tables and a bench and
Ping pong.
ping pong table with picnic table with a chessboard, right?
Yeah.
So initiative from Crossfield Wellness Network that they have some additional grant money left over and they want to give back to Crossfield in some of our parks, specifically Crockett Park.
Yes, that is correct. And if I may add to that too, they've just recently submitted another grant application for additional funds to try and bring more things to Crossfield. So
Excellent.
looking forward to what they have.
So I just wanted to, extend a thank you to the Crossfield Wellness Network. Good job. And it's definitely appreciated. Any comments or questions on the correspondent? Okay, if not, can I get a motion, please?
Good, Chair.
Yeah.
I'll move that all correspondence be filed for information.
All in favor? Perfect. Okay. I'm just gonna go over upcoming events and then we're gonna move to comment. Upcoming events, February 8th, adult paint night at Crossfield Municipal Library. Registration required. February 21st, babysitting basic course. Did I read that one was full?
Just today.
Just today? Yeah. Okay, so that one's full.
Yeah.
So apply for the next one if you're interested. February 21st, movie matinee, Lyle Crocodile, Crossfield Municipal Library, registration required. Okay, so I think we're going to move to, before we adjourn, we're going to hear some comments. I think first let's address anybody who has comments or questions around Night Crescent or anything like that. Does anybody want to speak to that? Okay, if not,
Well, I think.
yeah, sure. If you want to just come to the table. Yeah, just so we can hear you and if anybody online can hear you, yeah. So what I need you to do is just state your name.
Right, for the sales purposes.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Russell Shellworth, part of Night Crescent, I guess. So I guess we've kind of talked about it. So now is the plan, we're just gonna start ticketing if they don't behave? Parking nose in, or are we all going back to the parallel? I just
No,
wanted to
still
confirm.
Parking nose in.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor, I should have said Mayor Harris.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, did I start that right?
That's
I
okay
said
too.
three?
The more
Apologies.
you come, the better you'll get at it. It's okay.
It's gonna be nose in parking as it has been. The issue now will be that with the bylaw tightened up, it will give CPO Stevens more teeth with regard to nuisances and disturbing the peace, for lack of better terminology, in that cul-de-sac.
All right.
My hope is still that common sense will prevail, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm losing faith on that. But anyways, thanks for your patience and
You're very
everything.
Yeah, I mean, don't make council come over there with some barbecues and make you all talk.
Well, it's got to the point now where they can see if they're blocking in people, and if they're not, they move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak on the parking issue
I'll say those.
at night?
I mean,
Yeah.
we-
So first I'll get you to just state your name.
Robert Clappy, 59 Night Place.
Okay.
So the neighbors that are causing all the problems. We have numerous people here, 15 years in the cul-de-sac, 16 years in the cul-de-sac, 15 years in the cul-de-sac. That's 24 years in the cul-de-sac. There hasn't been any problems with parking with people who've moved in and out of the cul-de-sac. And so this particular people have moved in where they believe that they own the cul-de-sac. And they're causing problems with everybody else. It doesn't seem to matter if you try to talk to them, they don't answer their door. Like he was stating that when we park, they come out, they check, oh, you're not close enough, they come, they block in. Or if somebody parks in front of somebody else's house where they can't park because they block them from parking at all.
Yeah.
And they park in front of their house, 2 minutes after they park, they're blocking them in.
Yeah.
And they're just assuming that they have the right to block everybody in. And it doesn't matter, we've tried talking, requesting, mediation, nothing.
Not an automatic.
They just assume that they have the right to push everybody out. And if they don't like how you're parking, they'll make sure that you're not gonna park like that again, because they'll push you away. And it's continuous. We've been numerous calls to town, the bylaw. We've all been told nothing can be done because they're physically not blocking you in, but they're just being a nuisance. And I mean, there's no reason to put 10 feet between your vehicles. You put them on an angle so that people beside you can't park either, and then you're 25 feet over also.
Yeah.
And they just think this is right. So to have the bylaw amended, and hopefully this will cause things to be better. Like we've talked about the barbecue
Yeah.
in the cul-de-sac, but that'll probably never happen, but the thing is, it's a nuisance every day. You want to park, they come out 2 seconds after your park. You want to try to park nice, they push over so you can't park. It's just continuous. And everybody's getting, I think, a little frustrated with it,
Yeah.
especially when people can't park in front of their own house.
Yeah.
Because they get pushed out all the time. And they've tried numerous times to talk with them, and nothing happened. Hopefully this will.
Yeah, we're hoping so too. I can see how it can be really frustrating. For people to act that way and to do things purposely. And not willing to have those conversations. So I appreciate you guys willing to come here and willing to, be part of mediation when it's offered. So thank you.
Right, I guess that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thanks.
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as everybody knows, I live across the street from this situation. Very well.
I've seen Ghibli movie.
And I've really kept out of it. I really want to stay away from getting my nose into it because, but you know what? I am part of this town. I am a neighbor. And I support my great neighbors and, I'll fully support you on anything that you guys, and I know what's right. I know when somebody's doing something wrong and it's hard for me to sit back on my driveway and watch it every day when I see you struggle, and I do, with what you have to deal with, and I disagree with it, and I would hope it would have been resolved. I hope it gets resolved now, but I like you say, until we see it, I have a little bit, I don't have much faith in it right now, but I'm hoping. So, it's a great neighborhood. Hopefully we can all get along, and I know you guys, want to be good neighbors, and just sucks to see, because it's right in front of me every day. And I know you have to, you have to deal with it the most. So I understand. And I feel your pain, and I hope that things get better in the future. So, and I certainly, support you guys as my neighbors.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? And really, these are the things we really shouldn't have to deal with. There's bigger things in the town that we have to worry about. Is we have to make sure that we have, great spaces for our children to play in and be safe, and making sure our town's safe, and worrying about a parking spot. That's really low on the totem pole here. Low on our list, very low. It should be. So kind of disappointed that it's come to this. So
Excellent.
that we've had to go to making a policy, or, to a bylaw to correct a very small problem. So unfortunate. Those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gustafson. Okay, any more comments or anything on the parking? Yeah, please, come on up. Just state your name first. That'd be great. Thanks.
Stephanie Taylor. I'm from 51 Knight Place, so I'm directly in the middle of it. I don't know, a couple weeks ago if you saw, my husband and I were trying to move furniture into our house, but we had asked them personally, like we went to them and said, can you please move tomorrow? We will be moving furniture in. And the husband was like, yeah, for sure. Okay. Saturday comes, they're not moving their car. So unless I'm working with Esther for her to move her vehicle, like we can't get to the front of our house.
Yeah.
Like we have no access. So what if we have an emergency? Ambulance, firefighters, like no one can get to the front of our house.
Well, firefighters have a way to get there. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah. Okay, like
We have some tools for that.
What if they gotta take someone on a stretcher? Like, I don't know, like unless they're maneuvering around a car, like I have no access to the front of my house.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue is that, not that somebody is parking in front of your house, but they're blocking you from being able to park,
Well,
close
the
there,
biggest issue
or
is
they're
there's enough
blocking
room
you.
for all of us.
Yeah.
But they're making it so there isn't.
That's
They
right.
park so far away from the curb and from their other vehicle that there's no room. But there is room for all of us. We can all park there just fine.
Yeah, and they have to be reasonable.
Where do you live? You live on the other side?
Yeah.
Or like on,
She's on the.
you're on the south side, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
that's right.
okay. So you're more,
I'm in the house that's always.
you're
blocked,
into
but
the corner, so
Yeah.
you've got the smallest kind of piece of the
Where I
pie,
can
right?
never park,
Yeah.
yeah, that's me.
I got you, okay.
So,
Yeah.
like, how many of you have access, like, in the whole Crescent? Does everybody just park out front, or does anybody park in the back where the garages are?
Well, so that's the thing, my house is the only house with parking in the back.
Ah,
So.
your
I-
house is the,
Only house with parking in the back.
that
yes.
has parking in the back? There's no other garages back there? or-
Well, everyone has a garage.
Oh,
yeah,
I see.
But we actually have parking in the back, like
But-
beside our garage.
Yeah, to park like
Or
on
near
the
us,
outside the
yes.
garage. Yeah, it's pretty skinny back there between the garage and the alleys, right?
She's got the reverse angle. She's got the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
they
get ya.
that.
yeah, I get you.
But that's not to say we don't need access to the front of our house.
No, I'm not saying that. I was just curious of how that worked.
So I'm guessing that's why we get screwed out of parking in the front, because they feel like we don't
Well-
need it. I don't know, but
Or they're just not being good neighbors.
yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but hopefully, with some of the bylaw changes,
Yeah.
hopefully that gives our municipal enforcement and RCMP enough teeth
Mhm.
to go in there and have some actionable items that they can use.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Last call for Night Crescent,
My place.
Night place.
Night Place. Thank you. Okay. Awesome, thank you. So we're gonna move forward with some comments, questions from people who want to speak to fire. The fire issue. Who wants to go first? Luke, excellent. Come on up, state your name.
Oh, what needed you? Luke Rodrigo, 116 Sunset Heights. Your lordship, member of councils. In regard to the fire issue, it's very close to my heart. I fully support them. And having spent 20 years in the armed forces, working for the feds, I'm very cautious about surveys and people who makes a recommendation, because quite often there's bias into it. Think that I would hope you give that some considerations. The lodge, we have the lodge and we have the manors. Pardon my French, but they're both under different governance and they both have totally different dynamics. So it is good to consider that the differences between the two in consideration this particular things. The other things is the elders that are living at homes. There's a, you know, it's good to talk about group, but there's a lot of people who lives at home that are elders, majority are, but there's also people who have kids that have disabilities. Have a daughter at home, she's 90% plus disabled. Those guys have been in my house more than once. And I hate paying taxes to Justin Trudeau, but I will pay taxes in here to support our fire department. And I do not care whether it is a medical call or not. If it is a medical call and it is a responsibility of the province, send them the bills. Simple as that. I have been in a number of situations where it was understood it was nothing, but it becomes a blank show real quick and people die. Seen it, been there. It's not always fun. People who wear the boots are the people that you have to listen to. Truly do listen to them. In my house, there was one who, her disability, she fell down, broke her. Anyway, I'm trained. I stay calm. I didn't have no problem. But others around me, panic set in. If you go to another home where somebody has got a disability or there's something happen, however minor, and disability sets in, they become the patients. And they can have, some people get quite the mental issues afterwards. And then they find themselves no longer able to look after the people that they love. So you have to take all those things into considerations. It's not about the pennies. It's not about what shows up on the paper. It's about the people. Our fire department in here has been a pillar to this community in here, and they continue to be. We have a lot of brand new faces in here, the young guys. They can all learn to march together and they be working as one and have no division. If any exists in the fire department, that's a question of discipline and leadership. But the people comes number one. Totally 100% number one. I continue to look after my daughter, my family we do, but we're looking at just getting government help. It's 12,000 stupid dollars just to get a stupid shower so I can get a little bit of help. So when those guy walks in, I'll tell you, if anything happened, they walk in, everybody breathes. So it's important. What they do is way more than what you will ever be able to figure out. So retain the services. The province responsibilities, send them the bill, let them pay the bill. So. All I had to
I
say.
wish it was that easy and I wish they'd pay the bill.
Well, if the province is not willing, then there's always the election, the MLA can get out. If they're not doing their responsibilities, and as a town, then it's your responsibility to tell the people, those guys, they have good show, but they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and therefore you have to pay a little bit more. But I think everybody here correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure everybody here will pay the taxes to have a fire department that would show up to their house regardless of what the call is. There's other people, there's other things that maybe we should pay a little less. But the fire department, that's gold. That's survivals.
Yeah, go ahead, Counselor Knight.
Just so that everyone in the room has an understanding here, when we did the assessment with Seahawk, legitimately, we weren't in, and also in the recommendation, different things to be dropped. I don't think anybody in council wants to drop any of the requests that will impact life. But I think we can, in this whole room, can agree that an Omega call is probably not something that we need to go to.
Yeah.
Does anybody in this room actually think our fire department needs to be tied up with this?
With what, sorry?
An Omega call, transport call.
If
No.
they can't transport, why would they be called to transport call?
It's
not even a question. Can't do it. They just go there and then get released.
But we're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that's one of the
Absolutely, 100%. That was gonna be my comment.
pretty simple one to remove that. I think
Yeah.
once you get past the alphas and the conversations of understanding who in this room is maybe went to some alphas that went sideways, I don't foresee anyone in this council trying to get anything in a life threatening situation. So I know it seems like, oh, we're gonna get rid of this. We're not trying to, or personally, me, I don't want to see it happen either. So I think what'll come from this and what would be really helpful, we don't have this. The data of knowing what response calls we went to all these places. If we would have had that data for like the last 5 years or 3 years, saying, hey, we went to 200 Omega calls, 300 Echo calls, you know, out of the 50 Alpha calls, we had 3 escalated to this. Those are data that we can take back and go, okay, that makes sense, that policy, right? I think.
But we don't have that.
We don't have.
We
that.
don't have that.
I would maybe just really try to encourage everyone. I'd like to hear stories, but I don't think you're gonna see us cutting back on services. If that can help let people's minds slightly at ease.
Mhm.
Is one thing I'll say.
I
But-
certainly hope not, because we can get into situations where calls are misunderstood at the 911 levels. That happens quite often. And once you get onto the scene, same thing as battlefields, you get there, you think it's quite a bit different.
Sure. But
Picture-
some of
Picture
these,
changes real quick.
so some of the reasons that we're looking at this, Luke, was that our town gets to 5,000 people and we have a 28-person fire department. And calls start coming in and someone is at, let's say, an Omega call, but something else comes back in. I think this foundation that we're building right now, this whole path forward, probably isn't a right now thing. But how we can figure out how the fire department can grow, play it all, and have people support people that are in the heart attacks, strokes, severe cuts, like things that are instant like that, right? So I don't, I think the miscommunication of thinking that we're gonna get rid of this in the town, I think is a little, maybe try to alleviate that concern.
I mean, we obviously have to have discussions and get some more information before we make that decision on what level of service that we're gonna land on. What I can say is, I don't think we're gonna have the same level of service as we have today. Whether it's without Omegas or something like that or whatnot, but it also comes down to some of the other things on the chart. We don't even have a boat to do a water rescue or do some of these things, so do we need to have that on there? No, those are some things that we can eliminate, which we were doing. Some of the wildfire or wildland fire stuff. Maybe not, I don't know. So these are just, different levels. I'm not talking about grass fires, but I'm talking about actual foresty tree things that we don't have in Crossfield. So those are things that we can look at. I'm gonna go to Counselor Gustafson and then what's your name?
My name's Rick.
Rick, and then I'm gonna go to Rick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Luke. No, actually, yeah, maybe just because there's something I want to just touch on.
Go ahead.
Maybe I'll put it in a different context. Is what we're trying to do is maximize the resource of the fire department itself. So we know how valuable their time is,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So we don't need them doing, it's like an engineer going and cleaning out the garbages in his office. Do we want him doing that? No, we have a different service for doing that, right? So what we're trying to do, and maybe that's kind of a bad analogy, but what we want to do is maximize their time, their resource within our town and getting them doing, you know, the priority things that they do the best job at, which includes medical service as well. So don't discount that we're trying to get rid of that altogether. That's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah. No, I
We're just
totally
trying to
understand the
maximize
dynamic
this.
and how the mathematics work. And as the town does increase into numbers, it is correct to say we only have X number.
Yes.
But at one point, we have to draw a line where we have to ensure that the ambulance will be here. So the province will have to step up to the table. We have to identify that. So we don't rely on only just a few guys.
So if we take all of these steps right now to, you know, efficiencies, maximization. So when we get to that point, we're at 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 people. We have all of those things in place already and we're ahead of the game. You know, we're not going to do these, you know, babysitting calls where we have to go and wait for another service to show up. You know, we shouldn't have to do those things. So really maximize a valuable resource. That's really what we're trying to do here. And I don't know how we can put it any other way. We're not trying to take all of these things away at all. And I know how important that some of the resources that the fire department has been providing to, you know, the lodge right now. You know, they've been accustomed to those things. You know, is there a different way that we can look at that internally, you know, within the lodge, that how we can maximize their time by not, you know, just by making some small changes, or they could be big changes. I don't know yet, but that's why I asked to table that. So it's just, you know, it's a huge decision we're trying to make here. And
Just don't forget, even in a small call, panic do set and it changes dynamics.
absolutely. Yeah. So, okay.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks, Luke.
That was
Appreciate
my-
it. Rick.
Yield.
I just wanted to ask, maybe I missed it. Seahawk made this recommendation. We're talking about these types of whatever it was. Council Knight mentioned something about the recommendation we heard was dropping 50% services, and then what's shown on it there looks more like 80%. Seahawk made this recommendation. This is the part maybe I missed. Why did they? What was their rationale for saying you should not be funding this call, that call, that call? Now, you've mentioned common sense, or we don't have a vehicle to do transport. That seems to fall in common sense. So there goes 150 calls right there. I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but can't do it. Why are we?
Right, and that's a good point. So to address your question, I'm going to go to Russ and Sue on the recommendation and why Seahawk recommended that. Part of it too is, you know, council also met with Seahawk right at the front, and we went through an exercise too on levels of service and what that could look like, and what other municipalities did. So we did go through that exercise. At that time, council looked at some of those things before Seahawk even started this whole process. And so we let them know too, some of our thoughts. So that was married into their process as they went forward. So Russ, if you have any further comment on that as well.
Yeah. To get exact wording, I'd have to have the report here in front of me, and I don't have the exact wording, but it basically goes back to what Councillor Gustafson was saying, is that we have a limited pot of fire service personnel that we can draw from. And if we're spending a bunch of time on these Omega, Alpha, whatever it might be, Bravo calls, we're pulling people away from their volunteers. So we're pulling them away from their families, their jobs, and those sorts of things, where we want to try and focus on a certain number of jobs, do them very well, and start to expand from there. So that was one of the reasons why they had recommended that. Off the top of my head, I'd have to, like I say, read the report again, but the biggest factor is making sure, like Councillor Guston said, is we're maximizing our resource here. So I don't know if Sue, you've got another.
So has we told, yeah, firefighters? Well, I've been into the before. Is that how our firefighters feel their work? Because I'm getting that they're here because they think that this is an important job and they want to do that.
So, you know, I think it comes down to that. I'll get to CEO Keenan in just one sec. Yeah. I think that let's take the value and how hard of the fire department and how hard you guys work out of the equation, because there's no doubt that you're valued and everyone appreciates the work that you do. So I just want to take that off the table, because that's not up for negotiation or anything else. You guys are valued and appreciated. No problem there. For your other question, I think the start of this whole review really came from the firefighters, with complaints from the firefighters. And we dug into this to address those issues. Now, whether they were at whatever their complaints were, maybe part of them were we're going to these calls, we're being overworked or whatever else. But, you know, some of those things really aren't up to you guys. You have a job. That mandate comes from the town and the council, and that's what you follow. So you could love your job. You want to go to some of these calls, that's great. But, you know, I don't know. It's not up to you to say, I want to be here 80 hours a week or 10 hours a week. It's up to the town. Russ.
If I may, some of this stuff actually, without, you know, giving up any confidentiality stuff in some of the meetings we had, not everybody said we need to drop these, but the words came out of their mouths to us that some of these calls should be dropped. So it did come directly from some of the firefighters as well. And the other thing too is we need to look at, we do have limited budgets here. Unfortunately, money does sometimes come into play. With that, we do need to make sure that we are providing the training that we need to our firefighters, and definitely committed to that. It's just more calls you go to, more things you do, the more equipment you need, the more training you need, all that sort of stuff. So, and to make sure that it's kept up, it's replaced when it's supposed to be, it's maintained, it's inspected. So there's lots of things to consider. But going back to your comment, Rick, about, you know, some of those words did come directly from the firefighters.
Yep. CEO Keenan.
You just stole my thunder.
Excellent. That sounds
The
good.
other only thing I'd add is that burnout came up quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say that this fire department is not unique across the board. We do receive letters that other mayors and councils send to the province on this exact thing. We've received a few. We were able to pull a couple of them off our email list. One's from the mayor from Panoka saying the same things. AHS, well, their fire department is trying to somehow figure out a way around the ambulance crisis. They're trying to, really, AHS is doing it on the backs of their rural volunteer firefighters. So really on the same situation when it comes to response times from 911 and ambulance response times, Fox Creek, same thing. In rural Alberta, this does not fall on the back of volunteer fire departments or municipalities. The ambulance situation is putting pressure on these small departments to do more with less without getting funding from the ambulance service. And we touched on that earlier. I know that there was a comment even on the forum that said we get funding from the province to cover training. Do we? We get funding from the province in the amount of a grant in the amount of $2,500, either to go towards training or they buy us defibrillators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think that covers like the 400 calls or whatever we do. That really minimizes the work that you guys do by paying you pennies instead of paying what you guys are worth. Bon Accord, same thing. I could probably pull 50 more of these letters. We talk about these same issues at Alberta municipalities collectively. And everyone's going through the same 911 ambulance time crunches. If you even look at Calgary has actually fire department has actually transported people, and it's wrong. And I'm not saying that what you guys are doing is wrong or it's right, but we do have to review levels of service and training, like get better at firefighter safety and training as per the review. It keeps you safe, it keeps our residents safe, and this is just one of the jobs that council and administration has. And we don't want you guys to take it personally. And it was a hard thing to do, but it was a review brought on by firefighters themselves. And we trusted what you said and dug into this review. And this is part of the result of that review. All right, anybody else want to come up to the table?
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe municipalities aren't the only people who should be sending letters to the government saying, why are you putting this burden on to our municipalities and our firefighters?
Yeah. Good point.
Pardon me.
Further conversation? Yeah, come on up. Don't forget to say your name, even though we know it.
Beth Gabriel, 1125 Gray Avenue. I'm also with the fire department, obviously. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor and Council, for listening to us today. You have no idea how relieved I am to hear that you're tabling this discussion. I mean, absolutely no disrespect. I worry that you don't necessarily fully understand some of the things you're voting on, and that makes me nervous. Omega calls aside, because I agree, if it's a transport or something like that, that we can't do, that's one thing. I think we do need to be careful when it comes to the other calls. I'm coming at this from so many directions. I'm a fourth generation resident of Crossfield in the area. So this is the community that I was raised in. And the purpose of me joining the fire department was not to be a big, brave fireman. It was to be a community servant. And some of the calls you're talking about possibly eliminating with the alphas. So if your grandma lives at the lodge and she just misses the edge of the bed and slides down gently onto the floor and the ambulance is 3 hours away, your grandma's going to sit on the floor for 3 hours because we're not allowed to go on alphas anymore. That's really hard for me to take as a community servant. If you're, like, I could go on for examples like that for a long time, but I don't want to drag out your time. I just want you to be aware of all of the repercussions. Like, I know you don't think it's an alpha, they're fine. They're fine, but your grandma just slipped in the shower and she's naked and wet for 3 hours waiting for an ambulance without us showing up. So just really understand what you're voting on, please, before you make the vote on it in the end. I do have a few questions for you.
Before you move on, can I just make a comment to that? I know where you're coming from. I do understand a lot of this. I was a volunteer firefighter.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, because the lodge has their own policies.
Yep.
Whose responsibility is it? Really, when it comes down to it, is it our fire department? Is it the lodge to change their policies and to have a different way? Or is it the responsibility of AHS? Or is it a combination of that? And I don't know if the town needs to feel the full burden. I think this is something that needs to be massaged and worked on.
Definitely. Like, I'm not trying to discredit anybody or throw anything out the window, but I just want us to make sure that everybody is fully understanding what they're saying. and what they're, because I know you do have experience, but not everybody does,
Yeah.
right? So I just wanted to watch that. And I think we need to tread very carefully if we're going to say, well, we're going to stick it to AHS and we're just not going to respond to alphas because it's their responsibility. That's fine and dandy until that alpha turns into an echo and someone dies because we're not there. And that worries me as well. No disrespect. Like these are just the things that tumble through my brain as I can't sleep worrying about this.
That's okay. I'm just really glad
uh,
that you're able to speak to what you're feeling.
And just be aware that, yeah, like that not all falls are Bravo or higher. I'm also glad to hear that. I don't know where it came from, but originally that there was a possibility of scrapping all the way up through Charlie's. And I'm really glad. I really hope I'm understanding that that's no longer on the table. That's not on the table, never was. I don't care. That would be too far. That would cause revolt. If we do move towards some of these new changes, will there be exceptions like we've spoken about the lodge in particular? But what about if that ambulance is going to be X amount of time out, if it's going to be a 30-minute wait, will we then be dispatched? I know that, well, if it's a fall and they're worried or they need help, they'll call us, but sometimes that doesn't come until after they're on scene, right? So I'm just wondering if that's something that you would consider, that if AHS is going to be more than X amount of minutes, then yes, please dispatch our fire department.
I think right now everything's on the table for discussion, so we haven't made those decisions yet, and that's something we can talk about, and I'm sure that Russ and Sue will, involve the people that need to be involved in those discussions.
One of the other questions I have is this a resource management thing or is this budgetary? Because people's lives are priceless. And if we're going, oh man, this is so expensive, we can't afford to keep going to alphas. I think that's something we have to watch as well.
Of things right now.
Okay, so then if it's budgetary, how much revenue is the fire department generating through mutual aid contracts compared to what you're giving us in the budget? Because I've kind of been under the understanding that we sort of pay for ourselves-ish with that mutual aid income. Just so I'm not necessarily asking for exact numbers. I don't know because I was on council once and it was never clearly explained. I've asked so many times since I've been on the fire department, since I've been off council, and I've never fully understood how if we make $50 from our mutual aid and you guys are giving us $50, we're so expensive if we're paying for ourselves. I'm not saying we do or don't. I don't understand. And that will be something I would love to have.
Hang on, is that something that we have available?
Yeah.
Right now? Okay, so here we go.
Talking and I'll find.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I may respond to a couple of things you said, Beth, is about whether it's budgetary or not, it's really about maximizing the resource. And that's really what it's about. And I have it, because I have maybe a little bit more of an interest in, because I am on the board for the lodge. And, I want to make a decision where it helps the fire department out, but it also helps the lodge out. I want everybody to win. And we can make a decision where everybody wins with this. Absolutely. I have total confidence in this, whether it's we still ensure that the department goes over to the lodge and helps with a fallen senior, or if there's a policy and a personnel change or addition within the lodge that because we know that, yes, it takes a half an hour or 45 minutes to get an ambulance there to help lift a senior, that's fallen in and can't get up, but that's why I asked to table, so we can get to the point where we're both going to win. We're all going to win. We're like, and we all can
absolutely be made, and we can work together.
Yeah.
To make appropriate changes.
So was that enough time there, Sue?
Okay. Just 1 second. I think Councillor Vang has.
I've been in the same place as you. 30 years I was on part of them.
Absolutely.
I was very passionate about being there. But oh, I gotta ask you, how many people you have show up in the middle of the night for a 26 Alpha, which is a sick person?
It's hit or miss.
It's hit or miss, that's correct. When I was on my on-call weeks, I would have to set tones off 2 or 3 times to get somebody else out of bed to come and help me do a medical call with a sick person. So it does come down to people actually wanting to get out of bed to get down to that call too. So it's both sides, right? It's not just,
Absolutely.
and alphas don't always go to echoes.
No, they
I have
certainly
been,
don't.
like I say, over the years, I only recall one time where something went that wrong over 30 years. So even if we were to say cut out alphas and say Bravo calls, that is not going to really affect what happened. And I'm speaking on this from 30 years of experience too, from being a firefighter all the way up to being a captain. I mean, I wish I was still there, I miss it.
Mhm.
But, just learning the other stuff that you don't really aren't privy to, or that the other aspect of it is that I'm learning. Is it without, like, I really am trying to come up with an easy way to put this, but like I said, going back to for 26 Alpha, if I have to send out 3 sets of tones to get another person to help, and the other people don't come because they're burnt out from going on multiple calls, because daytime calls, when I'm working, as it has been pointed out, going from work, which was Country Pine,
Mhm.
Mark Lang had to shut down his shop. Everybody in the shop left. And he loses how much money per hour, right?
Right.
So that's another thing. I think that we're asking a lot of employers to take and let them have their employees leave for something that just as simple as a 26 Alpha
Mhm.
during the day.
Right.
And there's other types of calls too. And there's a whole list of them in here that I've read.
Yeah.
And this all makes sense to me, that Alberta Health Services doesn't want to send an ambulance to these calls. Some of them are alphas, yes, some might be Bravos, but still, this makes sense, why send an ambulance? And if they're not going to send an ambulance, how can we justify sending you?
Agreed. And if they're
Yeah.
not going to send an ambulance, I don't disagree with you, Counselor Vang, at all. And it's hard sometimes when you're on the spot to formulate the thoughts.
Yeah.
And I do agree that we do have to be careful of burnout and stuff like that.
Big time.
I would. Sometimes, the saying that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I think we also need to sort of take that into account too, because some of our top responders are like, what are you talking about? We're not worried about taking on these calls, but that's kind of neither here nor there. But I understand what you're saying.
Are also some of the only people that respond though.
Mhm.
Like, I can bet you still that out of the 28 people that you have on the department, there's maybe
8 of
gonna be
us.
6 or 8 of you that respond to the calls regularly.
Yeah.
So how is that helping the town if you can't provide us with the help you?
Right. I have other questions. We'll keep going. If you don't mind. Like
Right.
it all kind of all ties in. Do you have?
Okay.
Of
That's
course.
my 2 cents.
Estimates, not
Yes,
exact. but maybe,
absolutely.
but pretty close.
Absolutely.
Okay, in terms of revenue for 2022, 498,000, of which almost 200,000 was with regard to a mutual aid agreement. Expenditures, approximately 538,000.
Okay. Okay, that helps a lot, actually. Having actual numbers.
Say that's pretty
It took
close.
us a long time to get to that point, just so you know.
I can imagine. Just addressing one of the things you said, like, why do we have water rescue on there?
Mm.
We might not have a boat, but if a kid is drowning in our ponds, we say, oh, we don't do water rescue. That's not going to happen. We have ropes and wetsuits
I
and
know, and I get the ponds and I get those
that's
types.
again, it's more like a generalization of
I'm
like, let's
thinking
make sure we are being
the outside of
contrite,
town
outside of town.
potential calls.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I understand that too. You said that you have money in the budget upcoming for Seahawk to come back. For what? If their review is done, what are they coming back for?
To assist with some of the training stuff, to help put together lesson plans, training plans, assist in that area, assist with making sure that our SOGs are what we need, put together appropriately, that sort of stuff.
I think part of it too is like, in the report was review of equipment, bringing efficiencies, streamlining some things a little bit as well. I mean, we can understand that not everybody may have that expertise. You have expertise at going out and doing the work and saving people and doing all of that. But there are some other items that maybe we could do a little more efficiently
Absolutely.
and streamlined. And I think that's
Absolutely.
why they would come back and help out.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, there are definitely things that our department can work on.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate that the same person that's saying, you do this wrong, but you can pay me to teach you that? Is that appropriate? Does that cross any lines?
I don't think it does. I don't think there's any
Maybe a little
line
bit
there
red
that-
flag, honestly.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
It's very common actually in the industry for not like, I'm just considering, the fire department is another service. Just like, either police or a manufacturing service or whatever. It's very common. Trust me, it's very common out there to have a third party to come in to, either help or help plus implement those plans. So that's,
Yeah.
it is very common. And I've seen that a lot in business. I was in the oil patch for many years. I saw it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah.
If I may, we actually asked them, they didn't say, here's all the things you're doing wrong. Oh, by the way, we can help you do this.
Just the council meeting. He said multiple times, they're not doing this correctly, but my company can
Oh, yeah,
fix
he
that.
did say that.
That's
but
why
we-
I'm saying that made me very uncomfortable
But
because
but
that,
we did ask.
to me, that came across as, here's something you can pay me to fix,
Yeah.
and that made me very uneasy. The last thing I would like to say that I don't speak on behalf of anybody but myself. This is just from me. It's going to be very difficult for me to have any faith in that person coming back in because we were promised some things that we did not get from him. He made some major breaches of my trust. I won't speak for anybody else. I don't know if it was intentionally convoluted. I don't know if we were misled, I don't know how to word it. He breached some serious trust with a lot of people, with myself. I won't say it's anybody else. The way that some of this was handled was really disheartening. And I
Is there
find that
anything that
very
you want to?
frustrating. Did you guys get the entire binder or the overview?
We have access to it.
Did any of you bother to read the binder or just the overview? Read the binder. Then you'll know why there's mistrust. You read that binder. We're going into situations where our lives are in danger, our citizens' lives are in danger, and now there are huge trust issues amongst our membership because of the things in that book.
So you're talking about the binder that was left on the table for everybody to
For
read?
us to read,
Yeah.
you betcha. And did any of you guys read it?
And, well, I think that we can address that. Because we did have a conversation about that.
We were
Yeah.
told that we got a copy of it and you got a copy of it.
We didn't get it. We have access to a copy
Mhm.
that's in the office, so there's.
That none of you have
As
bothered
far as
to
I know,
read.
there's 2 copies, one in the office, one there.
But did you read it?
We haven't read the full all the
But
comments
you're
or
going to
anything
go ahead
else.
and make decisions, even though you haven't read the 365 pages, you read 30. That's a
Not
big
just
concern.
30,
So
but-
Beth, you gotta
You know
remember,
what I mean,
we've
though?
tabled this right now.
And I'm s-
Okay,
and
so you
I'm
have.
I'm very glad.
But
You
here's
bet.
the other thing.
Okay.
But this is still going to move forward and you're still going to bring this person back that
Okay, so
Is-
you said he's done this?
No, hang
with-
on.
With,
Hang on
Okay.
just 1 second.
I'm not saying there was intent. I feel we were misled.
Sue, can you address this?
Yeah, I can indirectly. There's a section in the binders, based on the interviews that
We were told would be 100% anonymous and confidential. And every word we said was printed.
Okay, can we just
I'm
let
sorry.
CEO Keenan just
Sorry.
address that? Thanks.
at the end of the day, no breaches of confidentiality were made. Beth and I've had this conversation. There were no names in that report. Yes, I mean, when Russ and I met with each of the members that we met with, I took notes verbatim. And there
Yeah.
was no names on them. But that information wasn't circulated. However, in this case, the information was contained in the binder because it was a justification for the rest of the material that's in the binder. There were no names attached to it. There's no confidentiality breached. My concern really with the members of the fire service is that it seems like a whole lot of time was spent poring over everybody's comments instead of looking at all the other stuff in that 395 pages, which a lot of the material was very good. So, you know, there has to be justification for why consultants make the recommendations they do. And in this particular case, a lot of that information came from all the interviews that they had with each one of you.
And should they have compiled that information and said, an overall consensus is that there is a feeling of X, right? When you work with people, you get to know them, you get to know their speech patterns and stuff like that. You know who said everything. We were under the impression that when we were giving these interviews, that it would be all put together and compiled so that they could make generalizations and draw conclusions from it, not that our words were going to word for word be printed for the rest of the membership to put out there, like to read. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, there are a lot of other things in that book. There are a lot of other things in that book. And I'm not saying I disagree with a lot of the recommendations, Sue. I know there's a lot of like paper trail stuff we have to work on. And I know that there are gaps and I know that there's leadership and stuff like that. I'm not disagreeing. The review needed to happen. We
Yeah.
do need to keep moving forward
Yeah.
and we do need to progress. I'm just saying that from my point of view, it's going to be very difficult to trust and, you know, be straightforward. And when I'm like, hope that doesn't get published, you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying,
But I guess the bottom line is nothing was published. There's two binders. There's one at the fire hall and there's one in my office.
and you're telling me that we needed to read the whole rest of the binder, but not a council did. And you guys
I
are the
didn't
ones
say that.
making the decision.
I didn't say that.
How many of you read the binder?
So hang on 1 second. Even though we haven't read the binder, this isn't the only time we've seen material. So
Yeah.
we not only met with Seahawk, I think on 2 occasions, but it's been addressed to council, I think 3 separate times too. So it's not like we don't know the information or don't have the information, regardless of whether we read the binder and in its entirety or not. The information in the binder has been brought to council in different ways through several different times. So I think that, you know, fair, we could go read the binder and that's fair too, but everything that is in the binder, aside from maybe any of the reviews or comments, we haven't seen those, but we have seen the material in the binder on separate occasions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But just not all of it together combined with the comments and reviews that you're speaking of.
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say something to you, Beth. It's about, we all understand the importance of the fire hall, but pointing fingers at council and saying that we don't know what we're talking about kind of undermines what you're trying to do. a little bit, if you understand. We got your back. Don't,
I know
don't push us to the
Absolutely.
wall, okay?
No, and I didn't, I didn't mean to say that
Okay.
like you're ignorant and you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just, some of the stuff, I just want to make sure you fully understand all of what it entails.
And you know what? We are gonna get, that's why I said, we're gonna table it.
And
We're
I'm
gonna
so
get it.
grateful.
So just let's
And I
let's
really,
sleep on it.
I do not mean any
And-
disrespect. I
okay.
know, especially Sue, I know you have put in so much work into this and I'm not trying to dismantle anything. Realistically, moving forward, I just hope that we can all keep having conversations
Yeah.
like this and we can keep our our members involved and not just listen to all the squeaky wheels. You know, look at your base members, look at your top responders and the people who have a vested interest in this town, not just their resume and.
That's right.
So, and one more thing that I'd like to put is I want to make sure that we have all our emotions in check as well.
I'm trying really hard.
I know you are, but- and we want, because that's the only way that I find that I make really good decisions, and it's not an emotional, and I'm trying to make because I'm gonna have to raise my hand for something, and I want to make sure it's the right one. And it's gonna stick, so I gotta put all my emotions aside, look at the facts, because we've got to look at facts here, and that's the best way to make decisions. So how do we maximize this great resource that we have, and make the other changes that where we can, we have to supplement maybe the gaps here, or bridge those gaps. So we are trying. So bear with us, please.
Thank you so
And-
much for taking your time with it. I
Okay.
really appreciate that so much.
We also appreciate you coming forward and talking to us about this, because I think it's important that you guys have a voice too. And I think you did have a voice, and we're given opportunity to have a voice throughout the whole process. So I think that's something that this council will always stand by, is having that open dialogue and allowing people to have the voice to speak their, whatever they have to say.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, I know I've had just conversations with Sue and with Russ, and I know that you all have kind of open door policies. So, and I really appreciate that, because I do feel like we are listened to. And I appreciate that you take it into account when you're making your decisions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
I'm short and quick. First of all, thank you for looking at the LOS and going back and looking at it. I don't envy you, because you have to face the community on what happens.
And we're okay with that.
I honestly, I don't envy you. That's a big task that you're gonna have ahead of you. The only thing that I think we're losing in the emotion, and I just want to make sure that it's highlighted, and I'll leave it at that, is that one example is an example of more of a feeling from an officer perspective that I'm getting from the hall about your contractor choice for going forward. Now, motions aside, we are talking dollar values, the taxpayers will be paying. What are you getting from it? Not necessarily what they are offering, but the engagement you're going to get. Because we're dealing with people, and I cannot force anyone to do anything beyond what they're required to do. So if you want engagement, that's the only thing I'm talking.
Is that a threat?
No,
Just checking.
absolutely not. I am here to give you the feeling I'm getting from the hall. That's all. I'm not saying that it's a bad choice. I'm not saying it's a good choice. I'm just saying that's something to think about. And you're all welcome to come down and talk to people at the fire department. And the reason I say you're all welcome to come down is because most of them work during the day. They're not around except for training nights. And honestly, they're not necessarily going to approach you. I'm sorry. And that's
So
not
we
unfair
work
for
during the
you. That's
day.
unfair for you. I know. I'm just,
We all have other jobs
I
too,
know,
so
I know.
we get what you're going through.
I'm
So what would you suggest? What are your suggestions? What are your solutions to this?
honestly, I don't have one. That's why I'm giving it to you.
Are we better mutual aid partners?
For what?
Training aspect?
Well, I think that When we have departments that are so close to us to do a dive and review and suggestions into what your department does, and they're your peers that you're going to be working with on fires, I honestly think that that would be harder to take from somebody else than from somebody that's an outside partner coming in.
Training as we.
The training,
Yeah.
well,
the Officer training that they're.
and how well is that working for you guys so far?
We've not tried to go to our
Do-
mutual aid partners.
Doesn't Airdrie come in and do some training? No, Airdrie, Carstairs, Rocky View, Bicycle, no one.
Could we explore those avenues first before we go? further? That instead of going back to this, back to that.
Counselor Vang,
I've put another question to you then. Again, in the 30 years that I came up, I gave up weekends, weekdays, nights to go to courses to get to, I'm up to 1001 level 2, or sorry, level 1, and I've got my wildland firefighting and all that. I gave up my weekends, my own personal time to go do that. That was something that was offered through the fire school for years. And now fire departments have gone away from actually doing that. I mean, can you not work with the Vermilion, or there's a fire school in St. Albert?
Asking.
Is you should be able to go to fire, etc. And you should be able to talk to their people there, and they would be able to hook you up with the courses. They did for me. I mean, you might have to go to Vermilion for 4 days to take the course, but you know, it depends on, you know, how much do you want to dedicate? Because over my 30 years, I know I'm beating the 30-year thing, but I gave up weeks, months and of my time to go train for the fire department. And over the years, people are less and less willing to go to train, whether it's in Vermilion, Airdrie. I know through Rocky Mountain Phoenix, you know, that they have offered a firefighter survival training at the Red Deer with the Red Deer Fire Department. Or there's the Hearst Hot weekends where they invite you up to use the hydraulics and that.
Wasn't
And-
so much, I don't think we're addressing so much
But-
like that personal training though, but if we're bringing in someone
But-
to each hour to part,
Vermilion,
why aren't we reaching out to some of those instead of the first thing we do? Like instead of the contract, that is, am I right?
Hang on. Wait a minute.
like,
I'll address the people that I want to speak. I just want to keep it in the order. So Counselor Vang, are you done?
yes.
Okay, great. So we're gonna go over here. You had your hand up first.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we're not gonna do the training. I'm just saying, can we look at other vendors for the training?
Okay, and
So I personally, because I've gotten to know through various training, other members of other departments, and a lot of departments are willing to do cross training. It's just that nobody's ever approached it before. So that's where we're saying, you know, why can't we reach out to Air Canada where they have, you know, certifications in X, Y, Z? And, you know, send a couple of our departments, because they train the same nights we do. Send them on a Tuesday night, so it's not an extra night or weekend out of our time, where we can go and cross-train with our mutual aid partners, people we're going to be going on calls with, that we're going to be able to familiarize ourselves with them more, you know, how they do their things, their equipment. But not only are we getting that education that we need to do these responses, but we are familiarizing ourselves with our, you know, essentially coworkers in our mutual aid that we go to. And that will, you know, we can all mutually benefit with less commitment, if that makes sense.
so just a question for whoever wants to answer it. Have you addressed any of this with Russ or Sue before coming to this council meeting? And if not, why not?
Hiring the officer. Do our officer training, whatever training
And currently with the training, as I believe this is one of the issues that was instigated kind of the review. If the training decisions internally haven't really worked for you guys so far.
They work for us, they didn't work for people.
No, I think that there was
Well, I'm
some,
not saying that we need to train internally. I'm saying, why do we have to see them? Can't we use our utility partner?
yeah, and is it this, you guys haven't had those conversations with Sue and Russ yet?
I have a question though, if I can come here.
Yeah, go ahead.
That is that the reason we're in this position is because the training hasn't happened.
Right.
We haven't used neutral partners, and this has been decades. So tell me why that hasn't happened.
Can explain exactly where it has come. In the 7 years I've been there, we've gone through 8. We're a volunteer department.
Correct.
We are people. It takes a year to get a firefighter trained to a base standard. You have to be there for 13 months before you move on to Calgary. We are a transition municipality. I've been involved in training as long as I've been there. And you do the best you can with what you've got, because the guy who was head of training 2 months ago, already gone. And that, I have absolutely no problem with help the base training program. The reason the report that we don't have any training, that we don't have any lesson plans, I'm a volunteer. I stayed up a lot of nights till 1 o'clock in the morning writing lesson plans. Evidently don't exist. But I'm doing it because the guy in front of me is quit already. And the guy before him quit. And the guy before him quit. And I'm asked all the time, can you step up and help? Because we know you have training. So I do. But like to Sean's point there, what everybody's got to understand as well is we're volunteers.
Yeah.
We work 10 and 12 hours a day, and then come home and go to a call 3 o'clock in the morning, fight fire for 4 hours, and then go to work smelling like smoke without a shower. You didn't have time. Then get up and do it all again the next day.
Yeah.
So this was a kick in the pants for us because we all do this, sometimes on very little sleep. And we're doing it because we want to serve our community. It's not that there's no training. It's not that the training is terrible. It's the training we've never been able to organize properly.
Right.
Because we don't have the reason. Our budget for training last year was a little bit north of 0. We were straightening nails in the training departments. We didn't have to buy a bag of nails. Our training has always been lacking. We're not giving any of the resources we deal with. Now, there may be some disillusion of this guy coming back and training us. You feel like, I'm sorry, I've done hundreds of audits. The only negative ones I've ever had, always been followed with the sale. Always. And I've done Alberta Transportation, I'm the director of safety for one of the largest transportation companies in Western Canada. Bad audit, always followed. Some were just trying to sell you. Okay. And if we had some resources given to us where we could, I mean, I've only got so much time in a day. So for me to come home from my job and on the weekends and write lesson plans, which I'm trying to do, and then try to do it to a group of people that not everybody shows up every week.
Yeah.
Very difficult
Yeah.
to hit that moving part.
So I
When you
think
get
that,
5 people in the last 5 moving on from the training department. You do the best you can.
so you bring up some good things, and the last one I think is kind of the nail on the head too. And I think that whether you're a volunteer, which volunteers now are perceived as workers under Bill 52, but whether you're a volunteer or a worker, if you volunteer for something, you have to have that level of commitment. And you can't do full training sessions if people don't show up for training night, which is once a week. Yeah, so heard you loud and clear on that point. Also heard you loud and clear on the budget, and my question back to you is, so whose responsibility is it to get a proper budget onto the table for the CAO, for your director, and for Russ, because or for council, because we don't know what we don't know. If it's not in that budget that you propose, then we can't vote on, so, like, if there's 0 in your training budget and we approve your budget, well, we don't know that you guys need training dollars unless somebody, the chief or deputy chief or whoever that might be, puts it in their budget to propose to council.
And full apologies to the deputy chief who's kind of right in front of people. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's the chain of command.
That's right.
My point wants to be more to the transitionary base. To have the same personnel there year over year.
Yeah.
So that makes it very difficult. So the findings that were brought up of training being lacking. To try and nail down that moving snake. Is very difficult.
Yeah. And I think it's not, and I think it's not unique to just this department. I think this happens with volunteer departments all over the.
Time to go?
Is it time to go? Is that what you're saying?
After 10:30.
But yeah, I mean, you have some valid points for sure. I don't know if, I think this is a conversation that Sue and Russ need to have to see if this is the only option or if there's other options that can be pushed out. But I would say, so far, I think there are some things that haven't been working, and that's why a review has been done. So we have to figure out what that path is to move forward.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
And if I could just add just quickly, on my end, I'm not opposed to looking at other options or us putting in the sweat equity to make it happen, but also need to keep in mind that my plate's pretty full, all of your plates are pretty full. So if we can get some help, and like you said, Jody, some help from somebody to help put all those lesson plans together.
Yeah.
And that's just one example, but
Any teachers in the room? Sorry, not to interrupt. The first year is the hardest.
I have a question.
Getting the lesson
What
plans.
happened to all the lesson plans that Ken Brennan did up that met the IFSA manual requirements, not necessarily the NFPA, but IFSA manuals, that everything there was covered in Ken's lessons plans that he did with Mark? Because from what I understand is Mark still uses that format to this day.
Well, I have the format. I just didn't have the equipment. Never seen it.
Through the chair, I think we're getting a little bit too into the weeds here, and everybody's time is important, and sorry.
No, it's fine. I just want to make sure that, if you have something to say, everybody's heard.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's important that people have their say. And I know that you guys have all had an opportunity to Sue and Russ. And perhaps it's important for you guys to have your say with us too. And, we are here listening just like Sue and Russ did, so. But I understand, yeah, it is getting late. We can't go in circles, but what we can say is this is something that, we can work together on, get a good path forward and make some changes and good positive changes. And the last thing I'm going to say too well, maybe not the last thing, but one thing I am going to say on this issue is there's a lot of, we can't just look at the negative. There's so many positive things in that review that you guys do, and you have to look at those too. It's not all a sad story. There's a lot of good in that review, and you guys have to understand and be proud of some of those things that are in there. So don't just dwell on the negative, look at those positive things, support each other and move forward that way too. All right. Firefighters, any more questions? Because we have maybe a couple other people that may want to have some say. We're good? All right. Yeah, come on up. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Mandy Drachenberg, the manager of the lodge. Mayor Harris, council, thanks for giving me a minute. A lot of thoughts, obviously, that I'm having on the topic. I work at the lodge, so it's, we talk about the lodge, so I feel like I need to say something. I think just to kind of keep it short, give it the time and whatnot. I do appreciate that we have tabled the topic. I think it's very complex and there's a lot of things we need to look at and take into consideration. I don't think it's as easy as, just say we just don't respond to the Alpha and whatever Bravo calls, because if the fire department doesn't respond and EMS isn't responding, then who is responding? Somebody still needs to help the person that's making the call. For the majority, I would assume that, anybody calling 911 has a reason to do so. And whether or not it's the right call to make, whether or not we need to call 811 or we need to look at different resources for sure, right? There's other possibilities, but there needs to be education, there needs to be a process in place, there needs to be, protocols, and everybody needs to be given time to look at those.
Yeah.
When we talk about, why does the lodge just do the lift and why do they have policies and don't do the lift assist? There's a reason why we don't do that. We're a level 2 lodge. We are a non-medical facility. My staff are not trained. We are not the strong firefighters on the floor. I have the housekeepers and the cooks. And, if a 200-pound man falls down, we can't just go in and help them get up. There's a lot of things to consider, right? We could do further damage. We can hurt the person. We can hurt ourselves. Like there's a lot of moving pieces, right? So the policies we have in place are there for a reason. So we can't just say like, oh, let's just change it all. That would require perhaps extra training or different staffing. It's very complex and it takes time to look at that, and, change takes time. I'm more than happy to talk about it. And I really hope and appreciate to be part of the conversation, because I think if we talk about the lodge should be part of the conversation, because we may have a thought or two, to add to the topic. So that's just kind of like my 2 cents for 10:40 at night.
That was is that what time it is?
Yes.
Well, thanks for your patience.
No, absolutely.
And thanks for your comments too,
Mhm.
because it's good for us to understand too. And I think that definitely we can have further conversations with the lodge.
Yeah.
With the understanding too that I think that it will have to be maybe not just the town making concessions, but maybe the lodge may want to look at different ways of doing things or different solutions or whatever that looks like. I think it's a two-way thing.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And thus far, there was no need for it because our protocol was call 911. And because EMS is not the first one to respond, it's fire, right? And we have a good relationship. Like we know who's coming and we can trust. Is one of my selling features when I tour and then bring new people in, right? Like fire is 2 minutes away, like, because people want to have a peace of mind knowing that their parent or grandparent falls down, that somebody's there to help them.
Yeah.
Right. So knowing that fire is on standby and helps us, like, it's such a great value, right? Like we appreciate everything you do. I hope you know that. I think you do. So yeah, there's a lot of conversation I think that needs to happen, and it's not cut and dry. It's not just black and white.
It never is.
Right. Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
why thanks, Mandy. Appreciate it. Liz, you wanna?
No, I made all my.
Are you good? You made yours.
Yeah, I think most of us.
I love when you're spicy, by the way.
People quit using my space.
You there. No, I did, like, cause I've been in your chair before.
Yeah.
And we had a discussion.
Mhm.
About changing level service. And overwhelmingly, we heard from people on the department about stories, like specific stories about breach of confidentiality. Sometimes we were talking about change.
You're good. Just don't mention Beth's name.
It's not just
I'm
me.
just teasing.
But like there were a lot of people, like a lot of
Yeah.
long serving members that came with huge concern. Because they had been to calls that were Bravo, Charlie
Yeah.
calls where they didn't show up when they did before an ambulance, somebody would have died.
Yeah.
And they all have stories.
Yeah.
So my challenge for you individually as counselors is to reach out to somebody like the long serving members for some of those stories, because they've stuck with me for years.
Yeah.
Through the chair, the only thing that I ask is that those stories get documented well, so that, you know what? Absolutely, it's not that we disbelieve the stories, don't find them stories, but we want to say, okay. And that's the problem we have, is we don't have any good records of, like Sue was saying, we don't have any good data to fall back on with the fire department to say, hey, this is the reason why. So we implore you, please give us the data, and that'll give us the reason to say, yeah, we not that we disbelieve you,
Yeah.
but we need that data to make that decision. Because we answer not only to you, we answer to everybody on my street, everybody on your street, we answer to everybody in this.
All the
country.
streets.
And
All the
you
All the
very well know.
streets when they come into yours.
It's not a human choice.
And it's great, you know, they tell you the stories that, hey, this could have turned into this.
Mhm.
If that happened, document it, give us the documentation so we can say to, you know, these are the reasons we're making the decision. Not just because, you know, Beth's told me that, you know, I think this could happen. I'm like, "Man, I can't
Don't
make
use
this
best
decision."
name.
He wasn't on the
So-
fire department.
For anybody.
But like, it was overwhelming. It was like a
Yeah.
lot of people, all of, and it wasn't like a scenario that might have happened. It was like specific stories of that.
Yeah.
happening.
But, you know, think of yourself, you were sitting in this chair,
Yeah.
would you need to make that decision?
Yeah.
And you would agree with me. Just give us the data,
So
good data, and we'll make the
yeah,
best decision.
well, and I think it's not one approach. I think this is a multi-pronged approach. There's lots of issues here that we have to address. One is, you know, the fire department review and what you guys asked for, we have to address that. We have to address, you know, levels of service, but we also have to keep pushing the province. And that's our job as council. That's, you know, one of our roles is to push the province for change and for betterment to serve our communities better. And we have to continue to do that. And I know that sometimes it seems like it's not gonna be fruitful, but I think that we have seen some change. And now that we've seen some change, we need to keep the pressure on so that we get more change. And I think that's one of our biggest roles as council is to advocate for our community and be ambassadors for our community to get better service from our province and from our federal governments.
I just want to say, I don't believe that that's gonna happen. We all are standing here in a crisis where we're reading news stories about so-and-so died in an ER
Yeah.
because they weren't being attended to. And I fear that we're sitting here in a room doing exactly what our provincial government did, made some decisions, and they were bad decisions.
Now, I don't think we're doing that here.
No, I just want to make sure we're not.
But and I
Yeah.
get the mistrust of what's in action and what's not happening.
Mhm.
But I think our role is to keep pushing for better things to happen. That's part of our role.
I agree.
Yeah.
But taking that away to prove a point might not be.
But that's not what we're doing.
Mm.
I can tell you right now, we're not taking anything away to prove a point to anyone. That's not what this is about.
I'm just saying, I don't want to fall in the same trap. We all are here concerned about our Alberta Health Services and the performance they're giving us. And I think that it's important that we set a standard as opposed to, too wrong.
Yeah, no, I get that. Two quick ones, Luke, and then I think that we'll shut her down.
I really appreciate what you said about the training, 100% from that. And about your negative review, 100% support that. Now, having heard what you said, and having heard the questions that you've asked, which I truly appreciate, because it really shows you're listening. That's important. Why don't we put the fire department at task to come up with a proposed training program that may involve an increase in budget instead. And that could be on the table instead of getting CFOC back, which is doing cost money anyhow. And I do believe that he is current fire.
Yeah.
So there might be a little bias, and I totally support what he says. The other thing is maybe we should, Mike, maybe we should review the community watch program. If we could have a community watch program and fully train them in first aid and whatnot. Maybe we could have that little group dedicated to transport. Take that away. That could be an option of it. Peoples are important. The feds and the provincial, they can go bang, bang, bang.
You say it in French, no one will understand you.
Yeah, well.
But I'm just saying that there are clear solutions I appreciate all the comments. I really think you've done an awesome job tonight, and I appreciate all of your comments and questions. And what you guys are doing and the training, 100%. And I think the leadership and you guys having you there is 100%. So I put them to task, and I think they will come up with the solution by themselves without involving Seahawk. Back.
Well, we're gonna leave that to administration to have those discussions and see where we go. But I'm sure they're open to different things and different discussions, as Russ said. So just appreciate all of you guys coming. Thanks for caring for our town and our residents. And I just want to reiterate, it's not about your service. We love your service. We think you guys do a great job. So never, ever think anything different.
It's about tweaking the service and making it better. Basically.
Just like yours.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Tired for you right now.
can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn at 11 o'clock. 10:59.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Amber.